Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to an all-new season of the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 11 as brought to you on the Premier SimRacing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right folks, we are back with a bang after our extended Christmas break. We're here to kick off 2026 in full flourish with an all-new season of GT3 racing. Season 10 was our 10 season anniversary, and with it we made our way all the way off into the sunset for 2025, and what a way to ride away all the way off into the distance. But we are back for 2026, and as we make our way into another decade of seasons here in the GT3 Championship, there is plenty to look forward to. There's plenty of new stories in store, and you're catching all the racing action live from circuit side as you tune in tonight and indeed for the entirety of the season. Once again, we have two splits. 120 drivers have made their way into this championship, split evenly, 60 in split A, 60 in split B. Indeed, the sign-ups filled up so quickly we have a reserve list that's absolutely extensive as well. Would you believe it so? To the point that we almost considered running a split C. We didn't quite have the admin for that, so we decided to do what we can do well, and that is run two splits exceptionally well, I dare say. And as we get ready to go racing today, you are tuning into split A. Here you tune in on the YouTube channel SimRacing International. Go to youtube.com and search for SRI or SimRacing International, and you can tune in and catch all the racing action hosted on a weekly basis in our community, where it be in our GT3 Championship, our GT Championship, or other series as we host more and all. And over the course of 2026, there's going to be plenty more racing action here as we say hello to a good number of you guys and girls as you tune in tonight. And don't be shy, feel free to say hi, because there's plenty of you watching I can see, and we do say hello there to the person who gets in first place in what is the YouTube chat, and that is none other than the Sakuria566. But where are my manners? Allow me to formally welcome you to this broadcast live from circuit side as you tune in tonight. In the commentator booth, you don't quite have Joe Glass, nor do you have Darren Thacker for Split A this season. Joe is not quite able to make it, but he's not in bad shape. He's going travelling around the world, I do believe, and therefore he's entrusted the task of Split A, albeit whether he's done the right thing or not, you'll have to tell me at the end of the season, ladies and gentlemen. He's entrusted it to myself. For those who've yet to meet me, my name is Paul Walsh, also known as the Paul Walsh Productions guy, and as we get set for our racing, well, I can tell you one thing, I'm very excited to have been promoted from Split B to Split A, although I do feel sad to have left our Split B drivers behind, but they're still fond in my heart, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure the story of Split A is told in full fever and fashion as this season rolls out. But don't worry if you're a Split B fan, perhaps you've accidentally made your way here to the Split A broadcast. Alternatively, you're catching both at the same time, because Split B is in exceptionally capable hands. You've still got Darren Thacker there, but he's also in the company of Chaz Draycott, the sim racing and real-life motorsport commentator, indeed one of the most up-and-coming and highly decorated commentators of the modern age, and you couldn't have a more perfect team there, whether you're in Split B or alternatively with me in Split A. But as we get set then, where is round number one, and we are here in Germany at the Sachsenring circuit in the German state of Saxony. A circuit that is a far cry from its original circuit that spanned the best part of 5.5 miles all the way back in its origin period of the 1950s, but that was public roads back then, and in the 1990s those public roads had to be closed off because the speeds of machinery were getting exceptionally fast, and in the end it was risking the result of fatalities. So instead, in the late 90s, in 1998, this dedicated racing circuit was developed and built, and it has stayed the test of time since then. Playing an annual host to the likes of DTM, it is a circuit that definitely keeps drivers guessing because it is made up of two halves. One half, it's all about twists and bends. The other half, it's all about straights and curves. Who's going to be able to master the two halves and put it all together to deliver a win? Well, that's what we're going to see today as we get ready to get this season off. So without further ado, let's make our way then into taking a look at what is the story coming to this season. And we begin, of course, with our championship calendar. Now, for season 11, we have got plenty to look forward to. There's no doubt about that. Because this calendar, where it follows the GT3 official series on iRacing, the Premier SimRacing platform available only on PC. And as we can see, we begin with a 1 hour race here at the Sachsenring today. It's full course. But returning after a hiatus in season 10, because it was all feature races in season 10, we have made our way back to the mixture of 6 feature race rounds, which are 1 hour rounds, and what is 4 sprint format rounds, or 2 30-minute races. The first of which you'll see in a week's time at Daytona at the road course. And then we'll see our drivers have to conquer what will be the oval and the infield in equal measure. After that, we then make our way Back to the European continent, it'll be to Portugal for the Portimao Grand Prix circuit. But you may be wondering, what exactly is that little question mark next to it? No, we're not going to roll the dice and suddenly change the circuit at short notice. That means we have got potentially mixed weather conditions at Portimao, where there is going to be the risk of rain. And that's going to be on the minds of our drivers. That's right as well. Our sunset season saw us, of course, have sunny conditions all the way through from the start of the season to the very end. But we have heard your calls, we've heard your cries, and we are bringing those mixed conditions back, and we'll be seeing them for 3 rounds of this championship. Round number 3 then, the 22nd of January, we'll definitely see that at Portimao, and that'll be a feature race round. Then we make way to a new circuit, both new to the simulator platform, but also here, new to us at SimRacing International. It will be the Miami International Autodrome that will play host to round number 4 on the 29th of January, and we'll be in a little bit selfish for a brief month. What a way to celebrate my birthday, as I'll be turning 33 on that day, by covering what will be an exceptionally great round of racing there, no doubt about it, and that'll be the Grand Prix course there for 2 30-minute sprint races. Then we conclude the first half of the season on the 5th of February with an intriguing choice of a variant of Monza. It'll be the combined Lauter Monza. We bring the Grand Prix circuit together with the old oval, and there it's going to be just as much about straight line speed as it's going to be about being able to brake well. That'll be a 1-hour feature race. But we don't pause after Monza. We continue our way straight into the second half of the season, and we head to VIR, the Virginia International Raceway, on the 12th of February. That'll be another 60-minute race, after which we then have our third sprint race pair rounds, and that'll be in Australia at the Bathurst circuit on what is the 19th of February. And then we head to the Nürburgring Grosser Preisstrecke, or the Grand Prix circuit, for an hour on round number 8 on the 26th of February. And then for our penultimate round, we make our way to Italy, and that's where we're going to stay all the way to the end of the season. That's right, Italy, one of the big beating hearts of motorsport in the European continent, will see us all the way through to the end. It'll be 2 30-minute sprint races for round number 9 in what is very challenging conditions. Remember the last time we made our way to Mazzano? Many of you may remember back in Season 9. In Split A, there was absolute chaos, and in Split B, we saw the first ever all-EVO podium in the second race of the day at Mazzano in treacherous conditions. It was an incredible sight to behold. Could we see even more magic there? And for round number 10, we'll bring the curtain down at the Imola Grand Prix circuit on the 12th of March in a 60-minute finale. So that's your calendar. What a calendar it is. Now, of course, we're here for Split A, and we need to introduce some stars, not in their reasonably priced cars, in their expensive GT3 cars, and we will introduce all 60 of our drivers. We begin with our 20 elite drivers. That's right, we have seen 20 elite drivers beckon the call, and here they all are in full listed glory, with all their driver profiles as well. And if you are sat there right now thinking, are those AI assets? Yes, they are, but we thought of a good use for AI, which is we've got all the drivers where they wanted to take their faces and AI Photoshop them onto drivers' overalls. And I can tell you one thing, everyone has really taken to it. It's lovely to see. It really does bring to life what is an absolutely packed grid. But as we can see here, in terms of our 20 drivers in the elite class, we have plenty of regular names, including the likes of William Humphrey, our 2-time GT4 champion in the Evolution Sim Racing. It was as known back then, GT4 Championship. We also do have Hayden Miller once again for Vulcan Motorsports, making his way onto the grid. We look forward to seeing what magic he can pull, given he's one of the fiercest drivers out there. We also do have fresh faces in the form of Brandon Dyer, for example, for Inter Racing Team. And also there we do have Mark Hutchison once again for Altitude 3M Esports. But that's on the left-hand side of the table. On the right-hand side, meanwhile, we've also got some more friendly faces, including none other than Ashley Coutland for Relentless Racing. We've also got Jack Wyborn there in his Ferrari. Look forward to seeing what he can do. We also do have Tim Modig for Simcoach, with Simcoach having a completely revised lineup bar what is Robin Pownier in the Premier class, by Simcoach bringing an entirely new team to the office for this season. And we also do have some fresh faces from the Netherlands, including Imma Hasseler and also Danny Van Oom, and we look forward to seeing what both of them can do in their choice of machinery. So an elite class there that's going for the top credential, and that will be, of course, the right to be crowned the everlasting overall GT3 champion for Season 11, because if you are the elite champion, you are the best of the best. And I can tell you one thing, it's going to be a new champion at the end of the season, because last season, in Season 10, we saw Sam Derbyshire be crowned your champion. He's not on the grid for this season, but he only did it by 10 points in an incredibly close battle all season long with Andrew Dawson, who fell short by a minor margin, and he's also taken a break for 2026, and I believe he's taking a break to spend some time with his growing family. Good luck to him and wish him all the best, because Andy, as he's known to all pals and friends, a very friendly chap, and he's got time for everybody. Zed Ploeg is back on the grid, and you can see him then, the 172 in the centre left column, and he is the third place man from season 10, and he arguably is the favourite for Vulcan Motorsports Gold. He should be the one, if he can carry on from where he left off last season, he should be the one to take the crown. However, the favourites and the bookies are out there. It's theory that's simple, but executing it is complex. And that's going to be the same thing that can be said about the Pro class. Because here we are then with our 40 Pro drivers, 20 of them on this first screen. My goodness, they're absolutely ram-packed, are they not? And we can see here plenty of names that you all know and love, including none other than Reece Saunders there, for example, in the number 92 Ford Mustang for Altitude Freedom Esports. We also do have JSD Motorsports' Joe Sparrow there on the grid once again in the 93. We've also got the UK sim racing pair of Nathan Anstis and Cy Anstey. They decide to get out of the administrator's booth and make their way onto the grid for this season, and they're going to be representing the UK sim racing team proudly in their Porsche 992s. We also do have on the right hand side there plenty of fresh faces, including what is Nicholas Carlson, the Beowulf Racing Team driver, and indeed will he be able to live up to mythology in the Lamborghini? We'll have to wait and see, but will it be a wolf or will it be a bull? Well, he's going to be the one to decide that. And we also do have Peter Duke for DC Motorsport, the Formula racing driver in the real world who spent the best part of 2 decades racing Formula Vauxhalls and also Formula 300s. We absolutely loves it on the simulator, and he's decided, intriguingly, to go to the Corvette for this season, abandoning his Mercedes AMG Evo. I wonder if there's some logic in that choice. We'll have to wait and see, because Peter Duke, when he does do well, he does exceptionally well, but he's got to have the right car and the right setup to do so. We also do have there, a bit further down, the Axis Sim Sport driver of Joshua T. Cohen. Also, we do have RLH's Alex Fretwell and Tom Weston there back on the grid for DC Motorsport. And we also do have right at the bottom there, one of the big fan favourites, particularly if you hail from the Netherlands, it's Stubby, ladies and gentlemen, or 9 in 4 is Nick Stubb, and he'll be representing Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing once again, as he'll be doing battle with Vevsy Van Rens, who'll be looking to impress once more after a frustrating season in Season 10, where in the end he lost out in the hunt for what was the crown in the Pro class to Stephen Codman. Albeit Stephen Codman's not going to be on the grid for this season, otherwise we would expect him at least in the Pro class, if not the Elite class, and conversely, of course, Robin Milton's not on the grid, so therefore, with Milton finishing third in that class last season, the favourite is the second place finisher from that season, and that is going to be Nick Stubb. However, again, the favourites have pressure put on them. Will they be able to live up to the pressure? We will see. But that's only our first 20 drivers of the Pro class. We've got another 20 here, and some fresh faces, including Iron Apex Esports' Harry Shaw, and I can tell you, haven't gone toe-to-toe with him myself. Years gone by in GT3 racing, Harry Shaw is a very quick and developing driver, and well, the fact he's into the Pro class here, he's already left me behind. He's left me in the sticks, there's no doubt about it. I remember those years ago. We also do have Matthew Jordan, the privateer. He's looking to impress in his Ferrari. Looking a little bit further down the left-hand side, we have Fotis Katios, Mr. Cinema for Split Track Esports. The reason why we say that, that's not a derogatory term, that's a compliment. Because if anybody can give us plenty of entertainment, no matter how poorly they qualify, it is Katios who'll be looking to try and carve his way through the field, because qualifying is in his strong suit, but racing craft is definitely so. We also do have the Villa Katonen back once again for Beowulf Racing Team, and also Dan Cilliers for Sim Coach. But on the right-hand side, meanwhile, in his full leathers, will be Alan Lever for UK Sim Racing, representing the team in the Pro class, alongside his 2 mates of Anstis and Anthony. And we also do have, looking further down there, the Sim Racing Team Lowlands pair of Menno Blom and Mark De Vries. They're back looking to go for gold, and we look forward to seeing what they're going to be able to do, given the fact they also struggled last season, and they'll be hoping for plenty more. With Wayne Douglas there at the very bottom, the DC Motorsport privateer, he'll also be looking to go high in his McLaren 720S Evo. So welcome to our 40 Pro drivers, and a big welcome, of course, to our 20 Elite drivers. But if we've got drivers competing, what are they competing for, I hear you ask? Well, thankfully, we can show you exactly what the prizes they're going for are, and here they are. All the drivers, whether they are in Split A or Split B, and we should point out in Split B, we do have our 2 classes of Premier and EVO. Our top 5 drivers in the Drivers' Championships will be competing for what will be trophies, personalised trophies, which include their car, livery, and team logo, and also on the back of it, all their results throughout the entirety of the season. We've got a new design for this season of the SimRacing International GT3 Trophy, and I'll tell you one thing, After multiple seasons, our drivers do not get tired of chasing after these trophies because, yes, it's always good to win a monetary award, but that very quickly goes away after a while. But what stays with you for the rest of your sim racing career is that trophy that's up in your bedroom, alternatively on the mantelpiece, and you can always tell everybody about it and regale them with tales from your sim racing exploits. We also do have our teams championship, of course, and all drivers in the top 5 teams in that championship at the end of the season, they will also be receiving trophies. And therefore, there's pressure on Vulcan Motorsports because their gold outfit last time, the All-Split A team in Season 10, were the outright winners after 9 rounds, but they've only got a single team entry this season, so therefore reducing the numbers, but looking to go for gold once again. But they'll need to make sure they stay ahead of the Axis SimSport teams, of which there are 3 on the grid this season, and that's Axis SimSports X, Y, and Z. No, they're not Pokemon generations. I think we've moved on from those, but I can tell you one thing, they're going to be going for gold. And we also do have SimCoach back on the grid once more, your third place finishers from last time out, and they're splitting their drivers across both splits once again. But also keep your eyes out for likes of Vulcan Fasters by Glosstep Racing and Phoenix Racing Red with their red and blue outfits with distinguishable liveries, looking to also change down a top 5 in the championship. So that's what our drivers are competing for. Let's talk a little bit then about where we are today, because we are here at the Sachsenring full course, located near the village of Hohenstein-Ernstthal in the Zwickau district of the German state of Saxony. 2.26 miles in length, 3.63 kilometers depending on your preference of units, but one thing that stays the same is the number of corners, 13, and this circuit map really shows you the fact that this is a very odd circuit compared to most on the European continent, because it really is a circuit of 2 halves. But before you sit there and think, well, is this circuit not perhaps appropriate then for GT3 racing? It has been host to MotoGP, to DTM, GT3 class racing, you name it, it has raced here, minus Formula 1, and therefore this circuit definitely is going to be a test that's a bit unconventional for our drivers, and they'll need to look to get things right from the outset. A good qualifying lap would not go amiss here, but also the ability to set the car up well for the corners at the start, but also have a little bit of straight line speed is also going to be pivotal, and that's what we'll have to see what our drivers can find the right balance for today. And a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just their brilliant simulator, but also the super duper track maps that come with it, and it does give us the opportunity, of course, to really see these circuits before we actually head back to circuit side. But before we do, just a quick rule with regards to our racing rules and also any changes for this season. We've kept it quite simple here, don't worry, we haven't broken into all the rule book here, and we're not going to bore you with every page and sector 22B, but what we can see here right now is the first big thing. We have returned to our Season 9 class splits, whereby in Season 10, you may remember, we had in Split A the Elite and Premier classes. Well, the Premier, our third tier class, has now returned to the top of Split B, and Pro, which was our second best class, and therefore the top of Split B in the previous season, that has now moved back into Split A. So the pace difference between our classes in each split will be much shorter now, and therefore it means we'll see even more intermingling of our classes drivers, and the baton is going to be ever tighter still. Qualifying wise, we've also seen the qualifying session changed from what was an hour-long session to a 45-minute open format session. So therefore, the fact that our drivers have plenty of time to set a good qualifying lap is still there, but they've got 15 minutes less, and they've still got to deal with the fact the circuit's going to be crowded with plenty of other drivers out there looking to try and also get a good lap in. But that's why they have 45 minutes there, so they've got time, but not too much anymore. All races, meanwhile, we'll see drivers have 2 fast repairs available rather than the conventional 1. And we've also seen the instant point limit slightly adjusted, just to encourage drivers to race a little bit cleaner, perhaps, with our drive-through penalty now being at 18 instant points. And should they get to 26, it'll be a disqualification. But those are the rule changes. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we all need to head back to circuit side, because we can talk about this time and time again, but let's get away over there then and see exactly how our drivers are getting on as they roar the way around in this qualifying session. And right now, I want to tell you one thing, with 13 minutes left on the clock, it's Serge Ploeg who is living up to his favourite status immediately here, and you couldn't make this up, could you, in the fact that he's currently the provisional fastest out there in elite and overall. Now, how can you tell the classes of driver in the timing tower? Well, you look to your left hand side of your screen, and what you'll see is those with a red sash against their name, such as Ploeg, for example, and William Humphrey just behind him in the timing tower, they are your elite drivers. Meanwhile, those who've got green against their name, of which Rhys Saunders here, he's not just got green against his name, but he's also got green on the car there for Altitude 3M Esports, they are your drivers who are in the pro class. So that's how you differentiate them, and for the uninitiated, there are no bonus points if a pro driver beats an elite driver. It is a purely Class Drivers' Championship, and the same with the Teams Championship. You take points into the Teams Championship based on where you finish in class. So if you win in your class, going into the Teams Championship will be a full array of points there. And speaking of championship points, there has been a slight adjustment to the championship point structure for this season, whereby any class that has 20 drivers or less will be earning less points and only earning points to what will be 15th place. Meanwhile, any class that has 40 drivers or at least more than 30, they'll be earning points all the way through to 30th place. So that means there's also going to be a little bit more tightness in terms of how many points are dished out. But as we do say hello to even more of you in the YouTube chat, it's great to see so many of you getting on board here and wanting to say hi and also letting us know who you're tuning on already. And goodness me, there's 39 of you tuning in right now. That's absolutely brilliant to see. Show some love, why don't you? Because you're already doing it. And as we do say hello to even more of you, we do say hello there to a Kirby. We also say hello there to the Hoboken Dan, who's cheering on Steve Rubino. We also do say hello there to CTL34, who I do believe is Craig Tillison, who I think is making his debut in this series, but he may be in Split B if he is. I always get them mixed up with other drivers. I know he's on our GTE Championship grid. We also do say hello there to Fotoraz90, also to Tin Van Vorst, and well, he's here to cheer on today. None other than what is, I believe, Mr. Immerhalser, as we do look to try and find him out on the circuit. We can't at the moment. You have to forgive us there because we are trying to catch up with all the drivers they make the one around. We also do say hello to Martin Arenders and also there to Mac Attack. Well, that's a good number of you. We will say hello to a few more of you later on. In fact, Jordan B, how could we miss out Jordan B, who says, come on, Big M Dennis. So therefore, he's definitely let us know who he's cheering on. And we also do have Elwood Blue. They're cheering on Mr. Humphrey and Stephen Codburn, and also Galley there. They're cheering on the Axis Boys and Altitude, respectively. But I must divert my attention away from the YouTube chat. As much as I'd love to look at it, ladies and gentlemen, because we've got a lot of cars out there right now. And, well, as everyone makes the way on through, well, what we do have is a bit of a run wide there. That is a McLaren taking a very long trip wide. Couldn't quite see who that was. That was not Nick Stubb as far as I'm aware, because Nick Stubb is in a different car. He's not quite in the McLaren, but somebody definitely getting it wrong there, as now we do look to Kyle Roy getting ready to go into the next hairy braking zone in his Corvette. And well, recently on the World Endurance YouTube Championship page, we did see what was a breakdown of the Corvette and a bit of an inside analysis. And one thing I've said wrong all the time in the last couple of years of commentating on cars such as this racing is that it's a 6.2 litre engine. No, in fact, it's 5.5 litres, but it is a V8. So therefore, if you do hear me say 6.2 litres at this point onwards, feel free to make a meme out of it. We can call it a Walshism. Much like Murray Walker had his Murrayisms, I have my Walshisms, ladies and gentlemen, and boy, do I have a few. But enough about me once again. 10 minutes left on the clock, and with 10 minutes left, it's time for an onboard lap. And so we jump on board with Menno Blom as he takes us around for a flying lap here on the Sachsenring. Heading down towards turn of one, and hard on the brakes he'll go, and we lose him immediately for a brief moment. Hopefully that's not a sign of something to come. Coming down for the opening right-hander and then into the sweeping left of turn number two, keeping it nice and tight but balancing the throttle, and then lifting off the throttle and now into turn number three. Onto the brakes he goes there, braking as late as he dares to dream to do so, to let the car roll all the way into the corner, and now up the hill he'll come in towards turn number four before executing turn number five. Car backwards in the gravel. That's Hayden Miller, who's had a bit of a trip for Vulcan Motorsports Gold, and now as he exits out here coming in towards turn number six, Menno Blom will just gradually build up the speed here, try to bounce the throttle pedal and head back to full throttle as quickly as he can, as he now gets set for the long sweeping left-hander that will see him head all the way up through the left-hander turn 7 into 8, and as he does so, getting ready to go onto the brake shortly in towards the very tight kink there at turn number 9, but he gets it nicely through in 5th gear, and now in towards turn number 10, downhill he goes, and we're getting set now for turn 11 very shortly, but looking over to his right hand side for his brake marker there. Dab the brakes, get the brakes fully on now into 3rd gear, making sure not to trigger the ABS. We briefly lose Brillone, but he comes back after picking up a distant toe there, and now in towards the final corner he comes through that left-hander. It's uphill on entry, it goes from camber to off camber very quickly, and for Menno Blom it was quite a smooth lap there of the Sachsenring circuit, but what exactly is it going to be as he crosses that time in line? And the answer is he's currently in 9th place. He's currently the 2nd fastest of our pro drivers. He doesn't go any faster there, but he will be trying to go a little bit higher soon. But as we do look from him to Danny Van well, right now we can see here the Lamborghini driver also weaving and winding his way on around the circuit, and he's still looking to be in a good spot and heading in towards that braking zone. Well, right now it does seem as though the Lamborghini driver here taking a bit of an unconventional approach with the choice of car. Indeed, we don't have too many Lamborghinis out there. Right now we do have the best part of what is, as I count with my fingers, 4 Lamborghinis, and well, one of them is all the way down in 50th place. That is Lorenzo Corretto, and we also do have the Lamborghini of Nicholas Carlson, who's in none other than 37th place. weaves his way in towards the long sweeping left-hander there at turn number 6. And as he does so, well, right now Carson trying to get the most out of the car. But the Lamborghini has proven to be a very interesting car popularity-wise over the course of the last couple of years. And the reason why for that is simply because of the fact that this is a car which can be very comfortable until you start to push it. And when you start to push it, what you suddenly find is that essentially the car gets to a position whereby you're starting to have to drive it on ice. And that's where the struggles become very noticeable, as we do see there Carlson backing off and deciding to wait until the circuit clears. In fact, he toes to the pits. Adam Baker here currently parked in the pit lane. Several drivers parked up in the pit lane, feeling as though they can't do any more. As Miller Blown right now finds plenty of drivers in front of him and behind him. He's in a little bit of a sandwich here. Now, I should promise you that this is not a race session they are in a qualifying session, but given the fact that there's so many cars out there, well, you do the quick mental mathematics. We've got 52 drivers in attendance here today, and we're 52 into 2.26 miles. You do that maths, so what you find out very quickly is there's not many miles per car, as that's a big slide there, as Nick Stubb takes evasive action from the wayward McLaren, and will in the end Stubbs able to avoid getting collected by it, as behind him, well, that is Fotis Katios keeping in close company, and Katios parks up there, he goes straight on and gets out the car, so he toes back to the pits. He's not too happy with that, but time is of the essence now. They are starting to run out of time. And as time gets little and little, well, you can understand if everyone's going to feel as though this is going to be a challenge. And in fact, Thomas Pugh there takes it out of my mouth absolutely perfectly, saying traffic's a challenge tonight with big exclamation mark. And indeed, Thomas Pugh is in this lobby. We'll see him out there later on if we don't see him shortly. And right now, everyone's just trying to find a bit of space. And if you can get a slipstream towards the end of the lap, particularly on the run from turn number 9 all the way up to turn number 11, that's going to benefit you massively. However, finding that slipstream is where the problem lies, because of the fact that you don't really want to be behind the driver at the start of the lap, as Jared Love there dives his way up the inside, and well, as he does so, my good lord, what was the Dexterous Motorsport driver there in the Mercedes, well, being caught almost blind by that. And Liam Fraser, meanwhile, well, he makes his way on to another lap as he comes over the crest. Right now, the AMG driver here looking to try and go a bit further. He's currently 14th, and I can tell you that Liam right now, lovely chap, having had the pleasure of meeting him in person in 2025. He does take his racing very seriously, however, and therefore, when he's in the zone, leave him alone and don't disrupt him. That's the name of the game, because Fraser right now is definitely locking in here and currently the full fastest in this pro group. That's provisional. 5 minutes still left on the clock, plus whatever overtime has to offer us. And as the drivers continue to push onwards here, car parked up there, that being on the exit of what was turn 4 into 5. That and Ford Mustang, they're very lucky not to collect somebody. And well, meanwhile, coming across the timeline, Sard Ploeg goes even faster. 17.561, but there we can see Milton Tomlinson Dennis right now second. He's improved to that second place. He's 2.5 tenths off, but in the Mercedes AMG EVO, that's an impressive lap, because this car, the Mercedes AMG, naturally wants to understeer into all these low to medium speed bends, whereas towards the end of the lap, its grunt with that 6.3 litre V8 is absolutely going to roar nice and high, but the problem is it's got to get to that point, and to do so, well, you're going to have to sacrifice a few things on this Mercedes to be able to make sure that it can really carry as much speed as humanly possible for the bends. One of the big things, of course, will be a lot of downforce added to the car, although most drivers will add some downforce to it, but the front engine rear-wheel drive machines will definitely have a lot of rear wing on them to make sure that back end is as stable as possible, because whilst all the weight's at the front, as Dennis there cuts the track limits going through turn number 9, so that's going to be an invalidated lap. As much as he would be happy with the speed he carried through there, you can see immediately back it off, giving back the time, but also respect to the fact that this lap now is not going to be a good lap. He's now only going to have another 3 opportunities to try and do so, but as he heads onwards, the train of thought is on, of course, his front engine rear-wheel drive, all the weight's towards the front, and well, all that weight comes forward, but as you make your way through the corner, the rear slides loose, as we do see Dennis there coming into the pit lane, a little bit of oversteer on corner exit, giving us a direct example of our point. But Lewis Kenyon, meanwhile, he makes his way on around, and as we do see the 196 McLaren driver, who we did see in the gravel earlier on, he was the one who came quite loose while heading up towards will be another lap. He's going to have to take his time here because there's a bit of traffic coming up behind him. Quickly moves out the way. That's some very good reflexes there from Kenyon, and that was the BMW coming on through. I believe that was BMW, although if it was, yes it was Jamie Bardwell's BMW there. I was going to say, I'm looking at my timing sheet right now and there's no BMWs on it. I swear I'm seeing a BMW. I can't mistake the G82 M4 kidney grille for anything else, can I surely? Although saying that, I might be thinking of a Ford Mustang at this point. And as he makes his way in towards turn number 12 right now, Jamie Bardwell, well, he's the only one in the BMW. That might be for good reason, because this BMW has proven an absolutely terrific beast to tame. But as he comes out of turn number 13, sorry, did I say terrific? I should have said terrifying. As he makes his way across that timeline, right now he's looking to be in quite a happy place. He's currently the 13th fastest of what is your pro drivers. And we can show you those class standings as we do see them there. And right now, just in terms of the top 10s of those standings, well, it is in the elite class. Loeg, Tomlinson, Dennis, then Humphrey, Kenyon, Sinkevicius, also Svensson, Pugh, Nickerson, Miller and Wheeler. And in the pro class, meanwhile, well, it is currently Reece Saunders who's the fastest by 10th over Menno Blom, with Jared Love, Liam Fraser, Katios round off your top 5, and then Cardozo ahead of Story, Donnelly, Roy and Hutchison. So that's where they all stand at the moment in terms of the top 10 of the classes. But the overall positions matter most, because when we come to the end of this qualifying session, we don't separate anybody based on their class. Where they qualify overall is where they line up for the purposes of our race, and therefore that's definitely going to be something on the minds of our drivers to be ready for, in the fact that they're going to have to give it their all if they want to come away on top. We'll see what they're going to be able to do shortly, will we not? Because we haven't got too long left to go in this qualifying session. Only the best part 1.5 minutes, and now our drivers will be on to their last couple of laps. The average lap time around here, of course, being just under 1 minute 20 for the fastest drivers. Loeg setting a 1:17.561, so 2.5 seconds faster. So therefore they will squeeze in one more lap, if not two. We've got quite a few drivers in the pit lane. In fact, our whole top 10, minus Tomlinson Dennis, are all in the pit, whereas right now it is Max Wheeler, who is currently in 12th place out there. He's the highest place driver who's trying to improve a little bit more. Hayden Miller's recently got out the car in the pit lane. Wheeler goes wide there with a dirty air wash, centred the car out wide. So that's going to be a little bit frustrating there for Wheeler as he tries to get it back together in the toe of Katios. But that's how easy it is to lose things when you're trying to carry all that speed. As we do look to the man we talked about earlier, Emir Hassalar. And, well, he's got quite a few fans there in the YouTube chat. He's in the Ferrari 296, and he finds a bit of company there in the Lamborghini that steps wide in the end. And that is the Lamborghini there of, I believe, Guajetor, who in the end brings it back on, but I think he was caught out a little bit by a Ferrari that was going on the attack. But speaking of Ferrari going on the attack, let's ride aboard then with Hassalar as he comes on to make a final lap. So heading towards turn number 1, onto the brakes as late as he possibly can. About 130 metres of quarter apex. Nice early apex there in first gear. Now back on the throttle immediately. Lets the car roll out a little bit into turn 2 to open up the latter apex. And now down into turn number 3 he comes. Through this long right-hander. It never seems to end. And then suddenly you're going back uphill again. Got to get on the throttle here. Get into second gear. Through 4. And in towards turn number 5 he comes. Through that left-hander. Goes a little bit deep. By design just about as he heads through turn number 6. But battles with oversteer there as Hassalar makes his way through. Car's loose and it's into the barrier for Emir Hassalar as the car just steps away from him time and time again, and he was pushing it to the absolute limit, but in the end the limit is what he found as Matthew Jordan now rolls his way around here as well. A few more drivers still to get their final laps in, but you can definitely see where everyone is absolutely pushing it as much as humanly possible. And well, going wide is Jordan into the barrier as well. Turn 6 into 7 catches out several drivers here, and I can imagine the grip levels are low as Peter Duke, meanwhile, he decides to tow to the pits. Tim Mordig, meanwhile, he's still out there. He's on his final lap. He's literally crept in at the death of the qualifying session. And who else is out there coming towards the end of one? Well, Katios is, but oh my good lord, that's a big jaunt to the inside of the road there at turn number 13. I mean, Katios right now fighting with the car. He's not too happy about it at all. He's had a great middle sector, but it's all been for naught in the final sector. And Katios in the end will stay 17th overall. And what will be for him 6th place in the pro class. Tim Modig right now still attacking this lap, but I think with that exit, he is cooling things down. And Liam Fraser will be your very last driver then, who is potentially on a lap here for our season opening qualifying session. But coming up through the hill of turn number 13, he pulls into the pit lane. And that's it for qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. So taking the first pole position of the season. Overall in the elite class, a split A, it'll be Aced Ploeg, the man who comes into this as the highest placed elite driver based on the season 10. And meanwhile, in the pro class, 5th place overall, it is Reece Saunders who's laid down the gauntlet ahead of Menno Blom, who takes 2nd place in pro in 9th overall. Indeed, what a qualifying session it has been. Some big surprises as well, perhaps one of the biggest ones of them all being Danny Phillips and Mark Hutchinson at starting 39th and 42nd on this grid. They are a long way down the starting order, and I somehow get the feeling that it's going to be a degree of frustration for both drivers as they get ready to go racing. However, as they do, Well, one thing to keep in mind is the fact that we will have a warm-up session after this qualifying. We will have a 5-minute breather in which our drivers have the opportunity to make tweaks to the setup of the car and also go take a comfort break if they need to. But once they've taken that break, they will then be required to get back in their cars and go full attack for our 60-minute race. So therefore, the circuit temporarily falls silent, but then it will start to build up with the sound of violence. But no fighting as such, or it will be vehicular fighting. And indeed, all of our drivers will be going full guns blazing for that season opener, as we do see some liveries being refreshed in the background, and I do believe it's because some driver liveries weren't loading as expected, so we are just fixing that. But of course, first round of the season, first broadcast of the season, we are always going to be facing a slight number of little technical hiccups, and whatever we experience today, we'll make sure are fixed to round number 2, but hopefully there won't be too many of them. But as we look to the YouTube chat once again, we do see Tim Perry there saying, hello all, had to get a fix of racing in before Friday, and indeed that sounds like you're a bit of an addict there, Tim, although I'm not blaming you. It's a healthy addiction to have compared to some other addictions out there, so I definitely encourage it. And well, if somebody wants to tape that and clip that, they're welcome to there. Just don't put that in front of the police if you do decide to, because I can imagine right now it could be completely taken out of context. We also do see there none other than Don Spring, who's cheering on MTD, and that is Milton Tomlinson Dennis. That's the abbreviation now, I do believe, for Milton. And well, we do have so many of you in it, so great to see. But don't worry, we're not too far away from growing green flag racing right now, as we do look to Benedictas Sinkevicius as he roars his way on through, and as he does in that Lamborghini. Well, he's got a bit of a tough start today in the elite class, hasn't quite qualified as high as he would like. However, he is in one of those cars that definitely goes well at some circuits and struggles at others, and therefore I think it's going to be about minimising his weaknesses and maximising his strengths. But as he continues his way on around, well, it won't be long before we see him looking to go in anger for this race, and even so many drivers looking to go in anger, as Adam Baker in the very colourful livery 91 Mercedes. I want to tell you one thing right now, that car definitely is going to be chasing down livery of the season. If we were to be handing out awards for it, I don't think we do a trophy for livery of the season. I might have to have a word with the organisers about that, because we have so much effort going in with regards to livery season in, season out. Surely there's got to be a vote on the liveries at some point, because they're absolutely incredible. But then again, as we do see Adam Baker making his way on through, you could understand if we were to give an award for the livery of the season, then I can imagine that some drivers would get jealous, because I can imagine all the livery designers and all those who make the liveries themselves. Keep in mind, they don't all go to a private livery designer. Some of these teams, they do have a driver in the team who does the work, or they jointly do the work, and indeed I think all of them really need a big round of applause for getting so many beautiful liveries together right before the start of the season. I can tell you one thing, there have been some teams that literally they have got these cars off of the airliner, or alternatively off of the back of the low loader, and they've literally had them painted at circuit side. That's how late some of them have turned up with their liveries, but that's how eager they've all been to make sure they're in the best possible trim coming into this season opener for Split A's season 11 of the First Day GT3 Championship, and we can't fault them for that, surely. This series, of course, sponsored by Carme, Modern Technology, and the GP2 Group. But with 2 minutes left on the clock, we look to Schubert Cardozo, and Cardozo right now in the Aston Martin V8 Vantage Evo, and this car, well, how it has gone through quite a fluctuation in popularity. It was quite a popular car in Season 10, particularly in Split B, but also it did have some advocates for it in Split A. But as the season went on, a balancer performance update was introduced whereby its straight line speed was slightly reduced, and what that meant was this car suddenly went away from being the middle ground between what would be the cornering cars of, say, the Ferrari and also the Porsche, and the power cars are, say, the Mercedes and the BMW, and suddenly it's almost as if now it's a cornering car but front engine and rear wheel drive. And the downside of this car is in the fact that its V8 engine is supplemented by a twin turbo. That's by design, because of the fact the way the Aston Martin engineers wanted the engine mounted. It's a Mercedes engine, it should be pointed out. However, the problem with that turbo is there's quite a bit of lag in the low RPM band, so therefore when you're driving this Aston Martin you have to keep the revs high compared to some of the other cars, and that's something that Cardozo will be wary of, and indeed many other drivers will look to try and capitalise on the fact that coming out of low speed corners, the Aston Martin might be a car that if they don't get the right gear, they could really struggle to build up speed to the next one. But we've also seen some other interesting characteristics come from cars. The fact that we do have Saad Bleweg, our pole sitter in the Acura NSX 22 Evo, the car that's been retired from GT3 racing as the end of last year coming into this year. Well, he's keeping it alive. He is the only Acura driver here, and this car is one of those drivers, much like what we saw in Season 10 Split might be where you have to drive it on the absolute limit. Robert Milton showed that, but if you can keep it on the limit, you can keep up with anybody, but you've got to keep it there. But this is why this car also bites back quite aggressively, even with its very strong electronics package in the car. And well, right now Plug will try to give us all a demonstration of just how high this car could go. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the clock comes to 0, and with that it can mean only one thing. It's time to head to the grid for our first race of the season. So they make the way onto the grid, and as they do, this is how all of our drivers will line up. Sard Plug takes the opening pole position of Split A season here for round number 1 at the Sachsenring circuit. He'll be joined on the front row, the Vulcan Motorsports driver, by World of Racing of STR Esports' Milton Tomlinson Dennis. We then have on row number 2, William Humphrey for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing ahead of Lewis Kenyon, the Vulcan Motorsports driver. Then we have your pole sitter in the Pro class, Rhys Saunders starting 5th place for Altitude 3M Esports ahead of Benedictus Sinkevicius, the Vulcan Motorsports driver there, looking strong in that 6th place start, but I think hoping he could get a little bit more out of the Lamborghini and put himself on that second row of the grid. But still, qualifying is just a lap. The race is plenty more of them. Then behind, in 7th place, it is going to be none other than Jesper Svensson, the Heracles performance driver, ahead of Thomas Pugh for Axis Simsport X. We then have Menno Blom starting 9th for SimRacing Team Lowland, ahead of Ryan Nickerson, who rounds up your top 10, with Menno Blom being our 2nd place pro driver in this grid, ahead of the Split Track Esports driver. Well, outside the top 10, we've got plenty of number of drivers on the grid, but we've got to get through them quickly. We do have Hayden Miller, who starts 11th for Vulcan Motorsports in the company of Max Wheeler for Phoenix Racing Blue. Then it's Nick Stubb for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing, who's the 3rd of our pro drivers, and it's a theme of pros for a little bit, because Jared Love joins on the 7th row of the grid for DC Motorsport. Behind them, it's Liam Fraser for Moonshiners Racing Club, who is joined on the 8th row of the grid by Danny Van and the relentless racing driver will need to make sure he stays one step ahead of Fotis Katios for Split Track Esports and Schubert Cardozo for Inter Racing Team, with both looking good in qualifying. Mikey Story for Dexterous Motorsports Quamar and Team Modig for SimCoach complete your top 20. And outside that top 20, starting in 21st place, it's Ashley Coulton for Relentless Racing ahead of none other than what is Connor Spree. The Vulcan Motorsports driver is then followed up by Stephen Donnelly for JSD Racing and Mike Barber for Quatermass Motorsport. Mike's back once again to give it his all, and it'll be Kyle Roy who starts 25th for Group M Academy ahead of David Hutchison for Axis Simsport X. On row at number 14, it's Robin Noel Brown for GPX Simsport Xenon ahead of Emir Hesselar, the Heracles performance driver, then being followed up by the combination pair of firstly Matthew Jordan, the privateer, and it'll be Jamie Bardwell who completes top 30 for Phoenix Racing Red. Outside the top 30, we then have Jack Wyborn for MRC 495 ahead of Villa Cotonum. The Beowulf Racing Team driver then being followed up by DC Motorsports Peter Duke, and then it's Ross Young who starts 34th for Dexterous Motorsports Zemex. Mark DeVries starts 35th for SimRacing Team Lowland ahead of Adam Baker for LS Racing, when it's going to be Nicholas Carlson starting 37th for Beowulf Racing Team ahead of Ashley Brooks. The Axis Sport Y driver then being followed up by Altitude 3M Esports Mark Hutchison, with Samuel Clark completing your top 40 for Dexterous Motorsports Zemex. Then on row at number 21 is going to be Chris Jennings for Axis Simsport X ahead of Dexterous Motorsports Quamars. Danny Phillips, the lowest placed elite driver on this grid, with Marl Johnson being then just alongside, I do believe, as he makes his way onwards. And well, as he does so, the DNI Esports driver will be in the company of none other than what will be Bracklin there, and that's Burt Macklin in particular. And the America Group M Academy driver then being followed up by Nathan Anstis for UK Sim Racing Norris, and we do see in the company there Wesley Van Rens. Then we have on row number 24 Mark Johnson for Axis Simsport Y ahead of Alexander Fretwell, in fact Alex Fretwell I should say, for RLNH, and then it's Dan Cillier starting 49th for SimCoach ahead of Lorenzo Croqueto, and on the final row of the grid starting 51st it's Matthew Bacon for SimCoach. With that, ladies and gentlemen, the formation lap comes to a close, and as it does, the pace car pulls away, and it's the Sard Plug to take us to the green for the first round of the season here in Season 11 of Split A's journey in the SimRacing International GT3 Championship. And it's lights out and away we go for our season opener as Sardply gets a good start, but look alongside him and you'll see there Milton Tomlinson Dennis immediately going the attack into the braking zone. One driver into the grass already, that's Mikey Story, but 3 wide they come into the opening corner. That's a bold move there. William Humphrey makes the place as they make the way through in towards turn number 2, and Humphrey gets the move done nice and early. Sardply there side by side for a moment but lose out, so William Humphrey bold, brave and absolutely ridiculous as that's Max Wheeler going sliding off the road, and as Wheeler brings himself back on, more cars going sideways. Well, everyone does come to a stop as best as they can, but the problem is it's the concertina effect and blind, leading the blind at this point. Nobody can quite see what's going on, so they've all got to pray and put the brakes on, but most drivers have been able to survive it with some degree of damage or the other. But it's been a bit of drama further down the order, but meanwhile, as they all recover, looking back up towards the very front of the field, William Humphrey right now leads this race, and he does so by the best part of what is half a second over Sardply, and right now the Vulcan Fastest by Glass Tip Racing driver is roaring at the front of the field here. Well, put aside what I said about the Aston Martin earlier on, as he comes up towards turn number 12, he is absolutely going for this, and I can imagine right now everyone else is going to be very eager to put an impression on him. But looking a bit further back, we see here Ryan Nickerson already chasing after what is Sinkovicius, as we've got Fotis Katios battling around the outside here of Thomas Pugh, and right now Katios, he's already up into second place in what is the Pro class, albeit Pugh come back at him immediately, as we do see that Svensson, well, they're going to go side by side out the corner. In fact, they're going to be 3 wide down the start finish straight, surely at this rate, as the open lap comes to a close. But in fact, Katios does get ahead, and now here comes Pugh and Svensson looking for an opportunity, but Svensson in the Ford Mustang looks one way, then looks the other, but can't find a way through. Pugh, meanwhile, absolutely fighting this left, right and centre. It's absolutely crazy from Thomas Pugh right now. He can't find a way to knock down the wall that McLaren's creating, and already it's creating a buffer to the cars in front. But understandably, I think Katios wants to buy his teammate in elite class, Ryan Nickerson, as much space as possible, so that way the Canadian driver can go upwards and go hunting after the next drivers without any fear from behind. But hold up a second. We got, oh my good lord, there's a bit of a traffic jam there coming out of turn number 2 into 3 and 4. Who exactly's gone round? That looks to be one of our Ford Mustangs of Vulcan Fastest by Glass Tip Racing. It's Nick Stubbs. Stubbs parks right in the middle of the road. How did he get there? I don't know, but I can tell you one thing, his teammates have gone around with him, and right now as he gets it back together, Schubert Cardozo, well, the Inter-Racing team driver, separate team, well, he gets himself back together right now, and he drops all the way down to 44th place. This is a very frustrating start to the race for Cardozo, no doubt about it. But back to the front of the field we come, and William Humphrey right now continues to lead this race, but as he goes on to his next lap right now, the Vulcan Fastest by Glass Tip Racing driver will now know for all the pace he's built up right at the start, now it's going to be all about essentially what will be his opportunity to try and break away. But we will see what's it going to be from this point onwards, because as he heads on towards the next timeline, well, Humphrey right now definitely looking good at this moment in the race, but something just tells me that as we go deeper and deeper into this race distance, he might end up in one of those positions whereby suddenly Ploeg and Dennis might be getting back on the back of him. But looking a bit further back here to Reece Saunders, and Saunders right now your leading pro driver. He's not had too much to worry about since the start of this race. In fact, he's had quite an easy start, as your top 4 of elite drivers in front of him, they continue to try and pull away, and Saunders just keeping himself together. But as they head over the crest and now down in towards turn number 6, well, we've had a lot of difficulty at the start for several of our racing drivers, but who exactly has had the most difficulty of everybody, I hear you ask? We'll try and get a replay of some of those moments very shortly, because definitely there was a lot to talk about from the very start of the race, and well, I would imagine that we do also need to take a look back at what exactly happened right at the start with the 3 wide into turn number 1. But Lewis Kenyon here in the McLaren for Vulcan Motorsports, he's under a bit of pressure with William Humphrey getting close. Humphrey looks up the inside, but car wiggling around there on the rear end, and I get the feeling Humphrey right now eager to make the move, but just a little bit too eager perhaps, as we ride on board with the 198. It's going through the final corner then, trying to get the power down as quickly as possible. Both of these cars, the McLaren and the Aston Martin, both using the twin turbo configuration. The V8 as well in the McLaren there, British V8 with a turbo system. Down in towards turn number 1. Humphrey looks for the move again. William Humphrey, so much confidence here under braking the Aston Martin. I don't know what he's had for breakfast right now. I can tell you one thing, he's absolutely going for it, but of course he has fallen down the order. He was your lead, and we need to get a replay of how Humphrey has fallen out of the lead of this race, because that's been unexpected. But Humphrey's got so much pace and so much confidence in the car, and I wonder if a bit of overconfidence perhaps crept in, and that's why he's fallen back down the positions. But as we do look to the exterior view, we'll now start to get some stories regarding that as we take a look back to the race start. So this is when we went green flag racing, ladies and gentlemen. Look into that blimp view. We're keeping an eye on William Humphrey here, and what you'll see is the way the field goes. Side plowing in the end. We got a decent start, but so did Tomlinson, Dennis and Mercedes. And Humphrey, he had a really poor start, but at this point went onto the brakes, and look at the speed he came in with. I think he missed his braking zone and ducked inside. Flags, meanwhile, literally knocked down like a pinball there in between the two drivers. What a crazy start from Humphrey. It worked out, and that time it worked out, but I get the feeling that in other situations it may not have. We had this for Danny Van Oom, meanwhile, as we went green flag racing. Keep your eyes on Mikey Story on the grass there in the Ford Mustang as well on the right of your picture. But under braking, where did Van Oom end up in all this? He missed his braking zone and immediately chucked the car to the gravel to make sure he didn't collect anyone. So good awareness there from the relentless racing driver, even if it came at the cost of his race. But to be fair, better be safe than sorry. And this then happened to Menno Blum only moments later as the SimRacing team Lowlands Corvette driver made his way from 1 into 2. On the outside there, that's Brave. Ran out of road and ended up on the grass. Cold tyres as well, but he avoided what was happening as the relentless racing Ford Mustang there got ejected out. I think Max Wheeler also ended up in a bit of difficulty there. But then we had this further behind for Dave Hutchison. Hutchison was making his way into the corners at the time, and as he came on down in the Access SimSport X all-white machine, a little bit of tap there. The GPX SimSport car is inside that Ford Mustang. Not quite sure who that was. I think that might have been Robin Noel Brown, and in the end they came to blows, and Hutchison got it back, pointing in the right direction, but not without causing a bit of a traffic jam, and that was the drama there. So that explains a bit of the story. We also had this for Emmet Hasselar a little bit later on lap number 1. And this was a free wide heading in towards turn number 12. Hasselar on the outside there in the blue and black Ferrari. And contact made with the Porsche, the UK SimRacing Porsche. Now, I believe that might be Nathan Anstis he made contact with. And Hasselar in the end sent to the gravel. And I don't think they'll be right to each other Christmas cards next year if that happens again. But meanwhile, we come to what also happened to Bert Macklin and Wesley Van Rens. This is Macklin from Miracle Group M Academy coming through the final corner. Got turned there, and Van Rens in the end got turned in return. The two drivers got hooked on each other. I think they'll talk about that one afterwards and discuss what they could have perhaps both done better, but frustrating, man, no doubt about it. And then this happened on lap number 2. This was Nick Stubb, who ended up right in the beating heart of what was the biggest traffic jam in Germany at that point in time, and well, made a mistake. I'm not sure if he was hit or not by Connor Spree behind, or at least the Vulcan was Motorsports machine behind him, but Stubb went on around, and then everyone had to part the seas around him. Let's see if we can get on board of what happened to Stubb. So this was looking back, and let's just listen. Might have been a tiny tap there, but to be fair, it would have been an innocent tap of that. But then Stubb, unfortunately, well, by going round, ended up in a bit of drama. But with that, we come back to your live pictures, because those were your first and 2 laps and all the drama there. We do have, of course, what is the change of positions to talk about with regards to Saad Ploeg versus William Humphrey, and it wasn't off track for William Humphrey. In fact, we do have one more replay to come, and here it was very quickly. This was on lap 3. Your leader at the time of William Humphrey made his way on through turn number 6 into 7, took a lot of curb as he made his way into 8 and 9, and in the end the car snapped on him, and William Humphrey, for all the speed, went out wide, rejoined comfortably, but he lost out the 3 places there, and that's what put him back to 4th place. And with that, that's where you put a pause in all your replays for now. But as we do, we come back to that top 4, and they're exactly as we left them all those moments ago, the best part of 5 minutes ago. And well, as our drivers head on through, well, meanwhile, we look a bit further to the rear of the field, because here is Frank Busen, the DNR Esports driver, making his way all the way up towards another corner, and Mike Barber was over the back of him there like a bad rash. Barber got a bit too close, and in the end ejected himself out wide, and that's what happens when you're so close to the car in front. You pick up a lot of dirty air, but also on top of that, you lose what is sight of the corner. And Sonny, the DNR Esports driver, will feel a lot more comfortable for a brief moment, but the elite driver will be back with him very quickly. And these drivers have both had to come into the pits already for repair work on the car. So understandably at this point, I think their race is going to be essentially more and more about now just seeing what points they can salvage. But from drivers who've had difficulty to drivers who are having a good time out there, here's Reece Saunders right now, who's enjoying battling with Benedictus Sinkevicius as they come in towards turn number 12. The Altitude 3M Esports driver, but he's under pressure here. And from Brian Nickerson, the Split Strat Esports McLaren looking for a move. Elbows out there. Saunders is sent slightly to the gravel. Here comes Katios for the lead of the Pro class, and he comes on through. And well, right now, Katios, I think he'll be saying thank you to what will be his his teammate there of Nixon later on today, because definitely quite a lot of fighting between those drivers. But Fotis Katios makes his way through, and well, he'll be pleased with that, no doubt about it, albeit he's now got to try and hold on to it as Hayden Miller jumps in. He dogpiles into the inside here of Rhys Saunders and adds to the man's woes. And well, you know they say don't kick a man when he's down. Well, in this instance, they're all deciding to kick and pick on at Rhys Saunders when he's down. But hopefully we won't see that for too long, and instead it will be a situation whereby Saunders can get himself back on track and be back to enjoying the racing, because right now I can imagine that's been a bit of a frustrating moment there. But still, he's got a long distance to go, and Rhys, like many of these drivers here, he'll have been in these situations before, and he'll know that he can bring himself back together and also build himself back up as time rallies on. But this long pack of cars at the moment definitely getting intriguing as Thomas Pugh tucks onto the back of it for Access Sport X. And as the 1-2-3 driver comes through the left-hander and in towards what will be the right of turn at number 11 in short order. Well, right now, Pugh really last in a long line of cars here. He's currently your eighth placed, well, he's an elite driver, and he really is the 8th fastest out there when you look at the lap times as well. A bit further back, this is Menno Blom battling side by side with Jesper Svensson. And these two side by side here is going to be the battle of what will be the Corvette and the Ford Mustang. It is America on America, not quite a civil war, but they're not close to it if they're going to be rubbing door to door. And as they come out of the final corner, Menno Blom takes that place there for 11th and moves his way a little bit further onwards. Now, up towards turn 1 he comes once again, and Jesper Svensson behind him is going to look around the outside. Blom goes defensive here, and in the end the Corvette driver just parks it on the apex and says to Svensson, well, we can play this game, but you're not going to be gaining any more time. We come back a little bit further to Ashley Coulon fighting with Villa Katonen, and the relentless racing driver here comes through turn number 3 in towards 4 in short order, and as he does so, he gets that place there off of Katonen. And the 10th place elite driver here, I think, wants him to make a bit more progress. But look into those overall standings, and there they are on your screen at the moment, as all the drivers make their way onwards towards the next sequence of corners. And what we're definitely seeing at the moment is the racing is definitely getting fiercer and fiercer as time goes on, but we are now starting to see gaps appear as hold up. Who's that who's gone for a spin? Is that Menno Blom? Yes, it is. He's gone on around, and he's dropping all the way down the order like a stone, as Menno Blom having a nightmare moment. And well, the woes for SimRacing Team Lowlands, they don't stop after Season 10. They continue, and Season 10 was really a season of two halves for the Dutch team, whereby the first couple rounds they were absolutely unstoppable, and then it all went wrong in Split B, at least, at what was the Algarve circuit at Portimao, where we did see Menno Blom come into contact with Vincent Loader, his teammate, and after that the team never quite recovered. They really had to regroup and rebuild over the course of the remainder of the season, and indeed something upset them, and it seems as though they're starting off this season where they've left off from Season 10, which is still with building blocks. But then again, we'll have to wait and see, because we know that Blom is not one to back out of a challenge, and well, as he heads down the start finish straight, he's going to have Connor Spree looking around the outside of him. Spree minus a front bumper on that Mercedes, we should add. And once that braking time they come, and Spree right now thinking around the outside for Vulcan Motorsports, looks to switch back, and that's not going to be forthcoming for him at the moment, as he now looks to get all the way to the outside of turn number 3. Beats Blom to the braking zone, and that's a lovely bit of work there for Connor Spree. In the end, he does make it work. Blom got offline, and well, now Mark Hutchison and also Danny Phillips are going to queue up, and Phillips is looking around the outside. He's got no patience as the Dexterous Motorsports driver, albeit he's racing fairly and respectfully. As he comes on around, I think he wants to get a move on here. I think he's worried about the pace he's going to lose as Hutchison ducks the inside there. Blom going down in towards what will be the rising turn of turns 8, 9 and 10. And right now the Altitude 3M eSports driver constantly working hard, and Blom goes straight off again. Now, was he tapped, or was that of his own volition? Well, Menno Blom right now the same sequence of course it went wrong the previous lap. It was a spin last lap. This time it's just going straight off into the gravel, but he gets it back together. That Corvette right now is absolutely not in a happy state, and I can imagine its driver is not as well, as Blom goes all the way down from what was a second place starting class all the way back into 19th. But meanwhile, Danny Sidiers had been passed quite rapidly by Schubert Cardozo. And Cardozo, who started in 7th place in this class, well, he seems to be constantly picking up the places right now after losing out so many early on. But here comes Sidiers back at him. They're swapping the places back and forth here as if it's trading on the share floor. And well, with 15 minutes of the race yet to be completed, let alone 60 minutes, understanding right now all of these drivers actually throwing everything at this. And well, I think they're all burning off a bit of adrenaline that's been staying with them since the pre-season tests. But Sidiers in the end falls back behind Cardozo, Gorgetto, and also Nathan Anstis are queuing up behind. And Nathan Anstis there is in that orange Porsche for UK Sim Racing Norris, in tribute, of course, to Lando Norris, your 2025 Formula 1 champion. I think I'm allowed to say that now, given it's been 2 months, and therefore nobody's going to complain about these spoilers there. And, well, the UK Sim Racing team paying tribute to Lando Norris. And I do believe we also do have a UK Sim Racing Hamilton team named after the 7-time Formula 1 champion Lewis Hamilton. Indeed, there's always a theme with the UK Sim Racing team names. They're normally the surnames of infamous drivers in British motorsport, and some of them are a bit more obscure than others, particularly what we've seen in recent years with regards to, say, UK Sim Racing Price, which, if anybody knows who that's referring to, well done to you, because I had to look it up when I first saw it. But meanwhile, coming back to William Humphrey as he makes his way around in 3rd place in Elite and also overall, as we show you those overall standings as we inch closer and closer towards the pit window, which normally does open around 20 minutes into the race. But right now, Humphrey is on the recovery drive as he attacks Milton Dennis. Well, Bloke just in front of him as well. Bloke has not been able to make the break, but I would understand that the Acura driver might be trying to protect the car as much as he's pushing as hard as he possibly can, because he will be in that situation whereby the Acura's tyres will eventually go, and when they do, he's got to make sure he's ready for it. That's one of the limiting factors of the Acura. It's got a lot of speed if you can tame it, but also it is very sensitive to tyre life, and as soon as the tyres dip below a certain percentage, suddenly the car really starts to bite back at you. More fighting going on further down the order as we look to Kyle Roy. We haven't really talked too much about the Miracle Group M Academy driver from Scotland until now. And as we ride on board with him, well, he's enjoying himself. He's up from 10th in class, which is the Pro class, all the way up to 5th in class, and he's battling with Liam Fraser here as he heads in towards the long left. Now, differences in cars here as they come out of turn number 12, and right now the Corvette driver here on the attack. And, well, this Corvette likened to be in one of the most unique mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars. Engine, of course, behind the driver, a departure from the previous generations of Corvette GTE and GT3 machine, such as the C6 and C7, where Corvettes have always had the engine in the front for their Z06 models. That is their sports road model, on which this is very heavily based. However, for the C8 Stingray edition of it, the engine is now behind the drive, so mid-engine rear-wheel drive, and the aerodynamic model to this car very similar to that of the Ferrari 296. However, unlike the Ferrari, this car's got a lot more acceleration across its gear range, but also it does have a lot of understeer on corner exit until the rear lifts on itself, i.e. once you really build up the speed, suddenly you go from a lot of understeer to quite a bit of oversteer. It's one of those cars where if you are a driver who likes a car that is predictable until it is not, then this is the car for you. That sounds a bit odd, but I think many of you out there will nod and understand in the fact that by the time it becomes unpredictable, you should have straightened the steering wheel, and that way you avoid the risk of the oversteer and corner exit, and Roy doing very well right now in this car to do so. It's also, as Robin Powney demonstrated last season, an incredible car in its fuel, and we have seen Corvette drives typically go much longer in race stints compared to anybody else on fuel saving or not. But Roy right now tucking in behind Fraser here, and Liam Fraser is showing no signs of feeling the pressure here, although different lines intriguingly. Fraser they're taking a much wider line at the apex of turn number 12, but it seems to suit his Mercedes compared to Roy, who's much more pointed as he runs out the corner. I think Roy trying to offset the dirty air that's being tossed over the front of the car, and now onwards they go. But we've had some difficulties meanwhile there being brought to attention for Ime Hasselaar, as hold up a second, Menno Blome is parked up again. It keeps going from good to bad to worse for Menno Blome. Things are not going right at all. But as he roars his way back up to speed, he is now effectively a lap down after what has been a pit stop. So Blome has decided to get his pit stop in early. It was a strategic stop, but I think something tells me that right now things have just not gone right at all. But taking a look at what's happened to Ime Hasselaar, we take a look back to lap number 2. So this was Hasselaar for Heracles Performance at the time, making his way in towards turn number 12. He was in the dirty of the Ford Mustang in front of him. That was Nick Stubbs' car. Went out to the gravel and went to rejoin. He's lost a bit of time there, so Hasselaar having a bit of frustration moment and losing all those places in a single run. And Heracles Performance driver falling down the order just that little bit more. But from him, we come back to your live racing, and we look to Max Wheeler, who meanwhile is all over the back of Ville Kotonen, as Kotonen continues to move forward. He started 15th in the Pro Class did Kotonen, or what was 32nd overall, albeit he's now going to lose by the place he gained overall to Wheeler, who tucks up the inside of him immediately. I think Kotonen here is more worried about the man who's now approached him from behind. That's Jamie Bardwell. He's a class associate of the Pro Class. So the Beowulf Racing team driver at this point will be thinking to himself, okay, what's next? And the answer is, I've got to stay on the defensive if I can, as Bardwell gets nice and close behind, and we ride aboard here, looking down at the front of the number 62 BMW. As they and make the way through turn 1 again. Difference in machinery. Rear engine, rear wheel drive Porsche 992 can be much more aggressive towards the apexes, whereas Bardwell has to take a much more grandiose sweeping approach here. Front engine, rear wheel drive doesn't have the natural weight transfer in the car. But what we can see here is the difference in lines means that they continue together and they separate apart. But Bardwell has to drive differently here because of the dirty air as well. He's getting a double dose of it as he comes over the crest of turn 5 and down into 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10 they come. And this is where the speed picks up. This is where the dirty air wash really builds, the aero wash as it's referred to. And Bardwell falls back here. No, he just has not got the speed as he bounces off the curb there. And you'll notice that runoff area, that light green strip, how it dips away from the very high-sided exit curb. And that's what's causing a lot of drivers to go out wide. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's why Menno Blom in the end got escorted out wide, because he put a wheel beyond the curb and then the bottom of the car grounded on what was the German flag painted coloured curb. But Bardwell looks up the inside here right now and he's showing no worries about the curbs, and the BMW can normally attack them quite high. And well, as he gets closer and close here, passing Menno Blom, who falls that down to him. Bardwell here so close he could reach out and touch the rear wing of that car in front of him. But to do so, I think at this point it would be one of those situations whereby he should keep two hands on the wheel instead. So 20 minutes to this race complete, more laps to come, but there's more and more of them coming in. Right now, all these drivers will know that at some point all that work on the circuit were to come undone with a pit stop, but who comes in first, who risks it? That's what's going to be the worry of everybody. But from all of our drivers, and it's going to be one of the situations where Bardwell at the moment, like many, will be thinking to themselves, okay, is there space in the circuit to come in? They'll have their strategists on the pit wall looking out for them. So nobody wants to risk coming in at the moment unless they've been relegated to the back of the field due to circumstances outside their control. But if you are somebody who's a long way back in the running order, such as, for example, none other than Nick Stubb at the moment. In fact, Nick Stubb's not in the car, as I understand. The camera's not picking him up at the moment. In fact, Nick Stubb has retired from this race. We just had confirmation of that. But you have somebody like Mark De Vries, as he makes his way onwards. Well, he's already made the one pit stop. The point is, but if you're this far down in the order, you can gamble by pitting early because you've got nothing else to lose. You might as well do something a bit different from the rest of your competitors. Well, as De Vries heads onwards, we look back to Ville Katonen, as he's still got Jamie Bardwell staying right with him. And these drivers, it's looking so very close. And in fact, it's a poor run out the corner for Katonen. Here comes Bardwell then, looking around the outside, but in the end he hasn't got the speed. That Porsche is so quick on acceleration here at Sachsenring. And well, Bardwell looks one way, then the other. He's going to try and beat the best on the brakes. And in the end, there's contact between the two of them. Katonen keeps the car pointed straight, but, well, I think there, Katonen's not going to be too happy. Immediate flash of the headlights there. I can understand why. Katonen's argument right now is the fact that if Bardwell hadn't ridden his door panel, the two of them would have gone very far off the road. And well, Katonen now, what he's got to do here, he's got to not get angry. He's not got to take the philosophy of don't get mad, don't get even either. Otherwise, if he does the same back, well, suddenly both drivers will be called in front of the stewards, and they'll both have what is the 200-page rulebook tossed at them. I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, don't have it thrown at you at SRI because it's a huge book and the stewards have worked on it for years. But the point being, a slight bit of joking aside, that right now Katonen's going to do it the hard way. He's going to do it the smart way, which is to beat the man on circuit. Albeit Bardwell, understandably, he went for it. There's no fault in the reason why he's gone for it. I think you'll look back at the one and think that was definitely near the margins of what was acceptable versus perhaps a little bit unacceptable. But he's got to get his head down here, because once you've done something like that, you can't think about it as a driver. You've got to think, right, moving on, I've perhaps created a rivalry for myself later in the season, but let's see if I can beat him for the remainder of the race and demonstrate that I've definitely made it happen. But as Bardwell heads onwards then, we look to Ashley Coutland, who is with Tim Modig, and Modig right now in the Sim Coach Porsche, the all red and black machine. Looking up the inside here, trying to get all in. Coutland right now says no to him as they wind their way down through turn number 1, and Mikey Story queues up behind them. But all these drivers right now definitely impressing. It has been a great race thus far, and the fact we're at such a tight and windy circuit in these GT3 machines, and we still do have the best part in terms of our runners, a grand total and boys, 47 of our 51 starters here. It's absolutely impressive to see, as we do say hello there to Leon, I believe that's Liam Silliams, who says, I never want to race here, and indeed, I think Sachsenring is one of the circuits that will be fun for some, and not for us. It could be a proverbial Marmite circuit, and well, as Coutland makes his way away from the man behind him, Modig right now watches on here, seeing the Lamborghini's V10 Audi engine just gradually give it a little bit of breathing room in the race. But we've been talking about everything that's been happening further down the order. Let's come back to the front of the field because we have your elite leaders here of Ploeg, Milton, Tomlinson, Dennis, William Humphrey and Lewis Kenyon together as Dennis goes up the inside. A little bit of rub between the two of them. And in the end, well, Dennis will get away with that. He just rubs there rather than made it to the corner as a result of the rub. And, well, he'll move ahead for now with the Mercedes driver. But Humphrey and Kenyon queue up behind here. And things are now starting to get a little bit feisty. Now, you might be sat there wondering, why did the World of Racing with STR Esports driver go for the move right then and there? Well, that might be a sign of a pit stop that's to come. Perhaps Dennis wants to be the lead car in the sequence and he's getting ready to think about the pit stops and he wants to put pressure on everybody else behind. The alternative might be that he's just been getting a little bit impatient and worried about Humphrey and Kenyon, particularly William Humphrey, who of course showed so much pace at the start of the race. And we have had confirmation, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that William Humphrey doesn't eat breakfast now, according to Elwood Blue, I should say, albeit there's numbers in the username there, they always confuse me. But good to see some information covered in there right now, and it's the third place man in the sequence that I think everyone's just a little bit wary of here because he's getting closer and closer to Saad Ploeg, who makes a bit of a mistake there at turn number 12. Albeit Lewis Kenyon may just be able to help his teammate out as they head on towards another lap. So 25 minutes have been completed here. The time is gradually trickling away. It does seem to be going quite slowly, but to be fair, we're not complaining. That's a sign of how many more laps they're going to have to do right now, and the fact that this race has been so lively and we've got even more time to enjoy. Down here, and I can definitely see a lot of fans there for Milton Tomlinson Dennis cheering him on, including none other than Beth Lobo 47 and also Leon Sealims. And right now, well, can Tomlinson Dennis start to pull away? If he can, he might have just pulled a bit of a trick here, but he's got some traffic up the road from him that is going to go a lap down when he passes it. He's got to be ready for that. We'll come back to them in due course as we look a little bit further back to the other member of the Vulcan Motorsports team. Well, Hayden Miller, in fact, Vulcan Motorsports right now have got 4 cars inside the elite top 10 and top 10 overall. And Miller and Sinkavicius, they're all running very happily together at this point. And Reece Saunders is just a little bit further behind. Something tells me that with the running order of these drivers, they're going to be happy with how the sequence is playing out, as it's going to be. Miller there just taking a bit of an excursion, and Reece Saunders is watching from behind and staying comfortably with him. These drivers right now continuing to keep us guessing as to when those pit stops are going to play out, as we do have Nathan Anstis and Mark Hutchinson both into the pit lane. They've both decided to come in a little bit earlier than perhaps we expected, but something tells me that might be for good reason. As Saunders up the inside here of Miller in towards turn number 13, he goes for it, and in the end as they come out the corner, well, right now, the Altitude 3M Esports driver doesn't quite get it done, but he shows his intention. And, well, with his intentions being so clear, I think the Altitude 3M Esports driver here might just be fancying his chances once again as they come into the braking zone now for turn number 1. And as they make the way from right into left, well, Hayden Miller here side by side with him. They'll go all the way through to turn number 3. And Saunders does take the place there. That's for overall position, not for pro position. Saunders is the pro leader, but he goes a bit deep there at 3. To the inside of 4 then. And Miller right now enjoying this. Saunders enjoying it. A little bit of rub and contact between the two of them, but nothing wrong with a bit of bump and grind between the two Ford of the Corvettes, the two Americans I should say. And right now Reece Saunders in the end does take the place, but what a sequence of corners there. It all started at turn number 15, and by the exit of turn number 6, Reece Saunders does make it happen. But now here comes none other than Hayden Miller looking to go on the attack once again. And well, what's it going to be from Hayden Miller at this point? Well, Reece Saunders for Altitude 3M Esports, I think he feels as though he might just be able to now start bolting away a little bit, and I think Miller's going to have to just simply let it go for now and think about the bigger picture, because as much as the racer in him want that place back, I think there's going to be a voice in his shoulder simply saying to him, let it go, it's not worth it, stay back and just simply do some fuel saving instead. And if he does do so, that's going to work out a treat for him. But into the pits comes Hayden Miller. He decides now to get himself out of that running order, and as he does so, well, it is a pit stop. And that is definitely, I think, well called for, as many more drivers stay out there and give it their all. As we look here, meanwhile, to Lewis Kenyon, he's still with Saad Ploeg, and in fact, Ploeg has dropped even further back. I think Ploeg's had a bit of difficulty because he's been passed by both William Humphrey and also Lewis Kenyon, and we get an immediate replay to explain. So this was the drivers making the way down what was towards turn number 1, and Humphrey was looking on the inside here versus Ploeg under the braking zone, and well, the Acura driver outside, and in the end a relatively straightforward pass there for William Humphrey. And meanwhile then Lewis Kenyon got a little bit closer. In fact, it was later on that lap that this happened. So it was on lap 22. In fact, it was the next lap that Lewis Kenyon here was all over the back of his teammate. And did he just simply go up the inside? Yes, he did. So I think Plurg there decided to play peaceful and just let it go. I wonder if there's a bit of strategy going on, because that was a very well-timed change of positions between the two drivers. Come back to live racing, and right now for Lewis Kenyon, his job is to now try and stay with Humphrey and Tomlinson Dennis, who you can see are starting to pull away at the very front. These two drivers have yet to come into the pits again. They are still staying out there. Indeed, everybody right now, I think, just waiting to see when is the right time to come on in. Nobody wants to come out this running order at the moment. Nobody wants to be at risk of ending up in a load of traffic. And I think it's all smart driving from everybody involved, at least for this point in the distance. As our leader sliding loose there, coming out of turn number 3 towards 4. Dennis right now definitely feeling that rear tyre wear, that heat on the tyres. It is quite a warm day here in Germany. As we do bring you the weather on the right side of your screen, and what we can see is ambient is 19 degrees centigrade. Track temperature is 37. We're almost at the point now where this circuit does start to get nicknamed a warm ice rink, which sounds contradictory, but the idea is it's so hot at this point at the tarmac that you start to slide everywhere as they cut as much as possible there as turn number 10, and down towards 11 they come. Any tighter than that and they'll pick up a slowdown penalty. They're really driving on the limit, all these drivers, but that's what we love to see. As we do say hello there to Budget Racing Noob, who says, "Cheering on Mr. Anstis tonight rather than chasing him on track." That's Alan Lever, and I hope to see you on the grid next week, Alan, because we do love seeing you out there, give it your all. And indeed, Alan, a very decorated driver in GT3 Racing, in the UK Sim Racing Series, which have been amalgamated into the Sim Racing International community. And, well, I know that we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do when he is able to make it out to the grid, because he normally does always bring some surprises. But coming into the second half of the race then, we've got 30 minutes left to go. We've still got plenty of pit stops that have yet to go. Nobody wants to come into the pit, understandably so, because when you're on a 2.26 mile circuit with 50 or so cars, going into the pit is risky. It means you can find traffic anywhere you look. And right now, Tim Modig sliding out the final corner and just into the pits and into the pit. Whoa! It's Max Wheeler. My good lord! In the end, he's gone sideways into the tyre bar. Somehow the car's pointed in the right direction, and I think Wheeler, in the end, a very late call to the pits for Phoenix Racing Blue. And well, as he heads on down the pit lane, the team are going to be absolutely screaming about that one. He goes up on the jacks there. There will be a fast repair, and he gets away with it. 10 out of 10 for Cinema. But here's the replay of what exactly happened, the on-board of Max Wheeler. So heading towards the final corner, you'll see Modig in the end have a bit of oversteer here on the exit of the corner, but then peels in. Wheeler in the end, you could see what happened. Big knock to the wall there, but he dipped the rear right tyre beyond the exit curb onto what was the black surface, and in the end the 133 driver losing the rear, thankfully managed to get himself righted into the pit lane thanks to the barrier. But I think the Phoenix Racing Blue driver there would have had his heart in his mouth with regards to what exactly happened. But back to your live race to become, and as we do, we look to Miles Johnson here for Access in Sport Y. He's been one of the sneaky stars of this race because he's gradually picked his way up as Ime Hasselar goes up the inside of him. Johnson started in 28th of what was your pro drivers, and well, he's made his way all the way up to 12th. He's doing incredibly well here as he heads on past our static camera there. That really gives you a sense of the speed with which they're winding their way out of turn number 9 in towards 10-11. As they do, all these drivers absolutely throwing everything at this, and right now nobody is holding back, and those who do, if they can do some fuel saving, well, we'd imagine they're going to be feeling quite confident they might be able to gain some more places. At the head of this group is Nicholas Carlson, the Beowulf Racing team driver, the number 8, and well, I must say that right now the number 19 driver, 10th of your pros, is looking quite comfortable in that position. As we do look to your class standings for a little bit of time, it is definitely one of those races right now where I think it's all going to be turned upside down when people start to come into the pits. And we do have into the pits now none other than what is Schubert Cardozo, and also into the pits there. Well, in fact, he's the only one who's recently come on in, but nobody else has decided to come in on strategy yet, so we are being made to wait. We're being made to wait and guess exactly how long. Will we just see the entire field come into the pits all in one go? It's happened before, to be fair, where they've effectively, you would think that somebody said over the tannoy to every driver, the in-car tannoy, that is right, everybody to the pits. But no, we didn't have a blockage on circuit. It wasn't a race red flag. It was just simply nobody wanted to pit, and then suddenly everybody had to pit because their fuel tanks were saying no. And right now, Ime Hasselar, he'll be hoping that somebody does get out of the way in the end, because he makes his way past our camera again, through turn number 10 into 11 he comes. Right now, the Heracles performance driver who's 10th in his class, but all the way down in 21st place overall. He's got a lot of pros to pick his way past before he gets to Danny Phillips. This man, well, he would prefer perhaps not to be running behind what would be pro drivers for much longer. And Phillips, I think, would feel the same, given he has got the best part of 7 pro drivers between himself and 8th place elite driver of Jesper Svensson. The Heracles Performance driver right now, just simply keeping things nice and rightly together. You can see even in the 124 Mustang here, he's a bit lonely out there with Fotis Katios, and then Thomas Pugh, his next target's up the road. But into the pits has come Nicholas Carlson as I look out my commentator booth window. So Carlson's decided the time is right to strike into the pits as we then come back to the front of the field. Here's Tomlinson Dennis. Humphreys behind him. Kenyon and Ploeg have caught back up. So therefore, the Dennis Humphrey show, it only lasted the best part of 5 laps. And then suddenly, where they were trying to pull away, they have been reeled back in. I think all these drivers right now not wanting to come in. I think they just simply want to try and extend that fuel tank. If there's fuel saving going on, I definitely think there's a lot of it in this group of 4 right now. And some lifting and coasting into the braking zones will definitely be a sign of that. And some short shifting on corner exits may assist with a bit of tyre management. Particularly, one of the weaknesses of the Mercedes is low speed corner exit, whereby 2nd and 3rd gear, there is so much torque going through that rear axle, where essentially the 6.3 litre V8 is trying to deploy all that power, the best part of 550 brake horsepower over the rear wheels, that causes those tyres to spin up aggressively, and it can actually rip the rubber off of the tyres. Whereas some cars, such as the Aston Martin, are a lot more comfortable in that regard, because they don't have as much low RPM band torque. Meanwhile, the Mercedes, definitely an absolute monster when it tries to get the throttle down, but that's why it's seen as one of the most powerful cars out there in GT3 racing, and why it has for a long time been the stable horse of the likes of highly successful GT racing drivers such as Rafael Marciello. But as Dennis right now tries to channel his own inner Rafael Marciello, heading in towards turn number 13. It's going to be another trip round, or will it be? No, it's a standard run. He decides to come into the pits again as Kenyon and Ploeg just simply follow on. So they put another lap on the board. Further down the order, we look to Robin Noel Brown. These drivers, of course, have pitted, so therefore now they're all fighting for position. And here's an example of what happens when you come out the pits near drivers. As that's Nicholas Carlson there, who's being battled with by Brown and also Wyborn. Wyborn in the end can't find his way into all this, the MRC 495 driver. And in amongst them was also Hayden Miller and Ashley Brooks. Hayden Miller is a little bit further behind, in fact, and Frank Buisson and Lorenzo Corieto, they are the ones who share all the screen real estate here. Heading down towards turn number 1 here, it's absolutely thick with cars, no doubt about it. Wyborn at this point, I think, just watching this and thinking, okay, how exactly are we going to play this all out? As Kyle Roy as well, he's on the lead lap in amongst this group, and he's currently a 4th place runner in the Pro class, and the Miracle Group M Academy driver, he'll be thinking to himself right now, which one's a lap down, which one's not. Thankfully, they do have an onboard relative they can look at, which tells them that, but understandably right now, I think his focus will just simply be on get past them all as quickly as you possibly can. Off camera, we do have a black flag. That will be a drive-through penalty for track limits. It'll be instant points in particular, and Ashley Koopman has been able to achieve that. Remember, of course, they do have 18 instant points before they do have that drive-through penalty. But with contacts and off tracks, very quickly that can build up. The contacts sometimes resulting in 2Xs or 4Xs as they're known, and off tracks are worth 1X every single time. As Carl Roy manages to step clear there of Jack Wyborn's Ferrari and Robin Noel Brown's Ford. We come back to the latter two in that conversation, and GPX SimSport Xenon driver is still trying to go on the attack here. It's not quite coming forward for him as he oh goodness me, he goes a bit too deep there in turn number 12, and the tree line reveals that Noel Brown goes around, and he's going to drop a long way down the order again. And the GPX SimSport Xenon driver, who had to cut his time in season 10 short by a couple of rounds in the end due to personal circumstances, will back on the grid today. And right now, this has definitely been a bit of a baptism by fire, and it's getting a bit too hot there for the number 11 driver as he tries to wrestle the car back up to control. Miller blowing in, just missing the rear of him, and Noel Brown into the pit lane in the end. He's had enough. The car is just not cooperating, and well, that cooperation definitely a key factor there in why I think that car's coming to the pits, and it may be a new set of boots on the car. And also it's a black flag for Noel Brown, and that's only made his day even worse. But back to your leaders we come, your elite and overall leaders. Tomlinson Dennis and still ahead of Humphrey, but the gaps are now coming together, and this is the sign, I think, that everyone is now thinking more and more about the dreaded pit stop. They've got even more traffic in front of them. That is the Ford Mustang of Mike Barber, which they're catching up to. Barber, one of the victims of the open lap madness, if you will. But as they come on, they all stay out. Nobody defects to the pit lane. Nobody wants to go to the undercut here, but you can see how even Ploeg is catching up to the back of Kenyon. They are all thinking about this, as meanwhile Humphrey looks up the inside. Versus Tomlinson Dennis into turn 1. Tomlinson Dennis beats into the brake braking zone and says, no, you've done it twice. I'm not having it done a third time on me. What is it they say? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me 3 times. Well, I don't know what I'll do in terms of what I should say there, because I don't know how far the saying goes on. But right now for William Humphrey, he's literally throwing everything at this. I think he's just been waiting with bated breath as we jump aboard with a second place man here. He's taking another peek up the inside there in turn number 5. He gets under Dance's skin, and now down the hill they come through turns 6 and 7. And the Vulcan fastens by Gloss Tech Racing driver. My good lord, he is absolutely poking, prodding and probing at the leader right now. And when I caught up with him in the build-up to today, as he was getting ready to submit his car photo for the standings, I asked him, how are you feeling for today? And he said, I'm not feeling great. Well, right now, if not feeling great is battling for the win and being the bravest on the brakes, I don't know what for William Humphrey is feeling good, to be honest, because I'd say he's feeling pretty epic right now. Wouldn't you guys and girls at home agree, particularly if you're a William Humphrey fan? But either way, right now, the 198 driver here is really going all at this, and as he makes his way out the final quarter, surely somebody's got to vector the pit lane in this group. No, nobody does. Nobody wants to give up the chase right now. It is absolutely brilliant. But as they all head on, we say hello there to Marley Joff, who is saying "tis but a scratch" in reference to what was that moment at the pit wall for one of our Ford Mustangs earlier on. And we also do say hello there to Brad Races and Matt Watkins. And I think I've said hello to everybody. If I haven't, do tell me, and I'll say hello to you a little bit later if I get a chance to look back to the chat, as I'm trying to make sure my eyes don't peel away from the road at the moment. And indeed, as we look to Ime Hassalar, well, the Heracles Performance driver in 20th place overall, he's continuing to recover well in this race, and giving credit where it's due, where it all went wrong, and also the fact that he did qualify quite poorly, he is getting it back together now, time after time, although I can imagine at the end of this race there's going to be a big debrief in the team garage as to what exactly went wrong. But is this a sign of something coming? Jamie Bardwell comes in from the mid-pack. He comes in from what was 14th place in this race, and he decides enough's enough. He was fighting the likes of Carl Roy and Jared Love. Speaking of which, here is the DC Motorsport driver in the 94 as the Scotsman heads up the hill. DC Motorsport back here this season with an absolute full complement of drivers, looking to give it everything as they usually do. But Jared Love right now definitely looking good in that Ferrari as he chases after Roy. Indeed, you think it's 2 Ferraris together, but in fact it's a Ferrari and a Corvette, separated at the moment by 4 seconds. That's why they're not in the same camera shot. Mikey Story is also trying to stay with him. He's 3 seconds behind, but that's where you've got traffic between them all right now. You've essentially got all the field on 3 separate laps here, and that's what makes it so difficult, because essentially drivers such as Mikey Story, they're on the lead lap, but they're coming up behind drivers who are a lap down. Meanwhile, if you are that driver who goes a lap down, and that being none other than, I do believe, Mark Hutchison, well, he is still a lap up on some drivers at Altitude 3M Esports, but he's not a lap up on everybody, and he's a lap down on others, as that's a trip wide there. In the rear of the picture, that was a Ferrari having a bit of an excursion. Couldn't quite see which one it was, but it was a bit of a difficult moment there, and well, they managed to keep it together for now. And well, as we see Menno Blom coming out the final corner, more pit stops coming. Svensson's into the pit lane, also Jared Love, also Liam Fraser, so 3 more defect their way and show their intentions. And it's now going to be who's the next wave that comes in. As meanwhile, Menno Blom just simply tries to follow the cars in front of him and look into those cars in particular on the same lap as him. It's David Hutchison right now chasing after Max Wheeler, and then Mark Hutchinson is a lot further up the road by comparison. But that's what makes it so interesting, because a lot of these drivers have pitted by comparison, and it does mean that for those who've yet to pit, they've still got to thread the needle into all this. And in fact, can we show you who's pitted and who's not, or at least how many pit stops a driver has had? Yes, we can. It is there now on your timing tower, and that will give you a little bit of context as to who exactly we're expecting to fall down the order. And perhaps one of the big names is Peter Duke here in the DC Motorsport Corvette, changing what was his, pardon me, changing away from what has been his customary Mercedes AMG to the Corvette. The team seems to have gone that way this season to mid-engine rear-wheel drive, and Duke right now in 25th. 9 stop is to come, but to be fair to him, the fact that he has made these places and gone as long as he has without issue is a sign of positive movement here as he moves forward in this car. And while he continues to look to chase down what will be his next pro rival, that will be Adam Baker. The only problem is Baker is 23 seconds up the road. So I think for Peter Duke at this point, it's a lonely race, and he'll see what he can pick up towards the end. He won't be finishing 14th in the pro class at this rate, but can he achieve a top 30 in the class? We will see him pick up some valuable points. coming on around. It's going to be right now for Peter Duke, where it's a bit of a lonely story until the pit stops play out, and then we may all fit back together. Samuel Clark, the driver who we've been avoiding on camera for the best part of the last 40 minutes or so, because of the fact we seem to put the commentator's curse on him whenever we put him on camera. Well, he finds himself in a very crowded turn number 1. As coming out the pit lane, that is Kyle Roy. Clark is yet to pit. Liam Fraser is right behind him, who has pitted. Clark right now is a bit of a fly in the ointment for all the drivers behind him as they all queue up here, and I think they're all simply saying right now, Sam, can you politely get out the way? Well, Clark's got a right to be here, understandably, as we can see there, Liam Fraser flashing his lights. Goodness me, it's almost as if I've read Liam Fraser's mind. And as they make their way in towards turn number 4 and 5, right now the Dexterous Motorsports Zemeckis driver here, well, he doesn't want to be in the way of Liam Fraser. Let's assure you of that firstly. And if he could, and if Liam Fraser gets close enough, I imagine that Sam will step aside. But the problem is, in these corners on the opening half of the lap, you've got nowhere to step aside to, unless you want to lose a huge amount of time and potentially risk going to the gravel. So he's being smart here. He's just simply saying to the driver behind, look, I'm holding my racing line. I don't have to give the place up to you. There's no blue flags or anything like that. I will probably move aside when you decide to go for it on this back section. The only problem is this Ford Mustang right now is an absolute monster in the latter half of the lap, giving it straight line speed with that 5-litre V8. And for Samuel Clark, he'll be looking safe right now. And I think his game plan is to make sure he doesn't have to back off at all. He wants to come into the pit at full pace, but Liam Fraser says enough's enough. And in the end, Clark goes very deep there by design, and that's to let them all go through, and he tucks into the pit lane there. So he was going to let places go, and in the end decides, you know what, I might as well come into the pits. And Liam Fraser will be grateful for that, because here comes Kyle Roy looking to try and get back to third place in the Pro class. This is for the final podium spot in Pro, with Jared Lovell over the back of them. It is a big fight here, and meanwhile, Tomlinson Dennis is in the pit lane off camera. Your leader of this race, Elite and Overall, has decided he's coming in before everybody else. So the top 3 of Elite have stayed out there, and well, meanwhile, as Tomlinson Dennis decides it's enough, we'll have to wait and see whether he's done enough to come back out as the leader. We are into that pit stop window with 15 minutes to go. They've all gone as deep as they can, and now those fuel tanks are gasping for a top up. Well, Liam Fraser right now, he's making sure to stay on top of this battle with Reece Saunders and Mikey Story a long way up the road. Saunders is into the pit lane as I look at my contact with window, and Mikey Story has yet to come in, but I would imagine he will be coming in very soon. But for Fraser, it is just holding on for now and see if he can get Roy and Love to fight each other. But Jesper Svensson, he would also hope the Swede, the elite driver, will want to get in amongst these pro drivers to move himself forward, because Svensson has the requirement, which is to try and chase down somebody else, and that is Emma Hasselar, who's a bit further up the road, although Hasselar's into the pit lane. Really, who he's fighting with at the moment is probably going to be more Danny Phillips, who's in the pits and being serviced. Mikey Story is leaving the pit lane. It's a long pit lane, to be fair. Where's he going to come out in front of this? Here comes Liam Fraser. Story builds up his speed now as he exits the pit limiter line. This is the battle for third in Pro. This is a battle for the runner-up spot here. Reece Saunders is already clear of this, but right now, all these drivers, they're all fighting over second, and Story's only going to be 2.5 seconds behind it. Meanwhile, in another twist, we've got a new leader of the race. Saad Ploeg stays out there for Vulcan Motorsports with Kenyon and Humphrey in. Where is Tomlinson Dennis? Here he is. We're looking at him right now as he makes one around. We look to the blimp camera, and this will give you the best possible long distance shot when he comes through turn 12 into 13 as to where he is in relation to William Humphrey and Kenyon. But Ploeg has gone the longest of everybody. He has saved the fuel to do so. We thought he had a fuel saving strategy in mind. Here's Tomlinson Dennis out the final quarter. Here is Kenyon building up speed on pit lane exit. Humphrey's a bit further behind. Here comes Tomlinson Dennis, and I think, ladies and gentlemen, it is going to be Lewis Kenyon who is the leader now after the pit stops. Yes, he is. He's ahead of Humphrey. He's ahead of Tomlinson Dennis, and Tomlinson Dennis, for all the huff and puff he's put into this one, he's now down to effective third place in the strategy. Is he down to fourth? Has Saad Ploeg pulled off a blinder here? Because Kenyon has for Vulcan Motorsports, and you would imagine that Ploeg has done the same at this rate. We'll have to see, because Ploeg will be coming into the pit shortly as he comes in towards the last couple of quarters, riding his way out of turn number 12 in towards 13. It's a very lonely moment on circuit. I think he wishes that he could have more moments like this for a bit longer just to enjoy the track. And as he comes out again, the Acura driver just keeps going. How much fuel has he saved in that car? He has not come into the pits as of yet, and that gap of 32 seconds, well, right now, he's got to pull off something magical here. The amount of fuel saving he must have done, because all these fuel tanks are weighted the same percentage. The Acura is not the lightest on its fuel, nor is it the most aggressive. But Plague right now is going 2 laps longer than anybody else, and well, we'll wait and see. Meanwhile, coming back to the Fraser and Roy battle, as Jesper Svensson has found his way ahead of Jared Love, so he's been able to squeeze himself in there, and in fact, Love's lost out quite a bit as a result of that exchange. He is also caught behind the Sim Coach Mercedes there, and that is Danny Sidiers for context, who has recently rejoined from an off-track, and I think has threaded his way into this. So Roy right now has got his sights very firmly set on second place in Pro, if he can take on Liam Fraser. But again, we are seeing here the Corvette right now, for all its speed in the first half of the lap, it doesn't have it in the second half. Jared Love at a distance is watching this, but he can't stay too distant for too long, because Mikey Story would love to have a word with him. The Dexterous Motorsports Quad driver is chasing after him quite quickly. Further back, we can see there Jamie Bardwell and Tim Mordig having a little bit of a look at each other, as your race leader overall catches up behind them. A fast approaching Sod Ploeg is almost with them, and into the pits he comes this time. He's as aggressive as he can coming into the pits. Does he time it right on the brakes? It looks like he has, and I don't think he has picked up a slowdown or anything like that coming into the pit lane. So well done to Sod Ploeg. He has gone the longest of everybody, but was it worth it? Here is Lewis Kenyon right now, the second place man on circuit, with William Humphrey coming up behind him quickly. They both make their way past the Ferrari Jack Wyborn, who now falls down a lap. He's in 24th. That's how quick our leaders have been going over this short lap, and they've got quite a comfortable gap at the moment to Tomlinson Dennis, but it may all be for naught as Kenyon now makes way out the final corner. Ploeg, meanwhile, he's right at the end of the pit lane. He hits the pit limiter line. My good lord, how much of a lead is he going to have? He's pulled a magical one on everybody. There is Ploeg in the rear of the picture. There's Kenyon and company. As he exits the pit lane, just squeezes ahead of the Ford Mustanger Samuel Clark, and Plague retakes the lead this race by 3 seconds, albeit in the most sketchiest way coming out of the pit lane possible. I thought that he might have let it go, but that's how much it means to him, and Plague has retaken the lead with 10 minutes left on the clock. What a turn in the tail here, and right now is Lewis Kenyon going to be able to hold on here for Vulcan Motorsports to make it a 1-2, or will William Humphrey spoil their party on the podium? We'll see, because as Humphrey chases right now, where is the pace? Where is that tenacity that we saw from Humphrey earlier on? It's there, but he needs to exhibit it right now if he wants that second place back, because Vulcan Motorsports right now are committing daylight robbery in Germany, and it is absolutely impressive to see. That's an elite and overall. Meanwhile, in the Pro class, it's Reece Saunders right now who leads the class by a comfortable 22-second advantage here for Altitude 3M Esports over none other than Liam Fraser, but Liam Fraser has got a challenge emerging behind him, because it's Kyle Roy who's in third. Jesper Svensson has put himself between the two pro stars right now, but I can imagine that Svensson will very quickly, for Heracles' performance, get ahead of Liam Fraser, and when he does, how much time will that cost Fraser? Does it put him back on the warpath versus Roy, and will Jared Love be able to factor his way into the mix here? The DC Motorsport driver has slowly risen out through the ranks over this race. He started 4th in class, and right now he's on course to finish 4th in class, but he's had to do it the long way round after the open lap difficulties, but it definitely has been a great performance. But he himself has Mikey Story right behind him, and Story here right now I think fancies his chances at 4th place, if not a 3rd place in that pro class. It really has been a crazy race. We're not done yet, but absolutely brilliant racing from our drivers, and that's before we talk about what's going on further down the order, including Adam Baker, Nicholas Carlson and Alex Fretwell here, all fighting over 13th place in the pro class. It may be small points to them, but right now those points are precious to them, and that's why we're keeping an eye on it, because for Baker, he's definitely had one of those races where it's all come up top trumps because of the strategy, and Carlson and Fretwell have lost out in the pits by comparison, with Baker having a very short pit stop of only 12.5 seconds. Carlson, it was 20 seconds because they did change an extra tyre on the car, and Fretwell, meanwhile, 14 seconds. He couldn't quite save the fuel, and Adam Baker fuel saving a Mercedes that normally drinks a lot of fuel. Well, I'll be Adam Baker in LS Racing demonstrating where it's Porsche or Mercedes, he has a way of getting the most out of the car either way, and he can make any car fuel saver plenty. But coming towards the end of his turn of the circuit, that's going to be a 38th lap accrued for them. And well, up towards that timeline he goes. But from then we leave them behind, because at the end of the timeline and in towards turn 1, here's Kenyon and that's William Humphrey. Well, we said, where's the tenacity? There it is. He's looking already. Humphrey right now, he's got daggers in his eyes for this one. And the Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tip Racing driver is starting to think, right, when do I go for it? He's going to be keeping Kenyon guessing. A bit further back, Benedictus Sincavius. He's got Reece Saunders over the back of him, and Saunders right now breathing down his neck, and the pro leader doesn't need to really do anything at this point other than just simply stay with him all the way to the very end. Saunders doesn't gain anything for beating Sinkevicius. The only thing he might gain is a bit of a look from the stewards and the organisers to say, should Saunders be promoted to elite class, or what would be round 2 or round 3 onwards, because these classes, they can be subject to a slight revision as the season goes on, albeit we will cut off the revisions by the time we do get to round number 3, I do believe, because otherwise it'd be unfair to suddenly change classes midway through the season when everyone's starting to accrue points. But in the early stages there can be some changes, or perhaps that's what Saunders is trying to do. Perhaps he's trying to say, look, I'm an elite driver, get me out of pro, I deserve to be in amongst the top 20 drivers on this grid. Well, either way, Saunders has put on an absolutely brilliant run, and Sinkevicius right now is trying to hold on just a little bit longer as he finds more traffic up the road. This time it's Dave Hutchison and Nathan Anstis who are fighting over 16th place in the Pro Class, 31st overall. These two drivers still enjoying a bit of a fight with each other, but the UK SimRacing Norris driver at the moment, I think, hoping that perhaps Hutchison will fall foul of a little bit of traffic behind him, and that would just give him some breathing room. But down towards turn 1 they come, and David Hutchison there does have Sinkevicius on his inside. Here goes Saunders, absolutely brazen, making it 3 wide. Saunders right now will carry it 2 wide all the way through the quarter sequence here. We have seen this time and time again where 2 drivers will enter turn 1 2 wide, and by the time they get to turns 5 or 6 they will finally complete the 2 wide sequence. But this time Saunders tucks in behind, and Sinkevicius, well, he just rides onwards here and decides, right, I've held him off for now, but when's he going to attack me next? Meanwhile, Kyle Roy looking around the outside of Liam Fraser into turn 1. The Miracle Group M Academy Corvette driver finally starting to bear his fangs just a little bit as we ride on board the dashboard here of that 24. And right now he is looking quick, he is looking smart with the car, but can he deliver the blow that's going to get him ahead, or will it all be for naught? Right now I think for Roy, he's just trying to see where Fraser is the weaker of the two of them. In the course, of course, the Corvette does have that advantage, but we are seeing he's getting closer and closer over the entirety of the lap, and it's little nibbles of time that is worth so much at this point. Ian Fraser is not slowing down by any means. We see Mike Barber there step aside for Quakemas Motorsport, a lap down, and he lets the whole field go there. Great awareness from Mike, no doubt about it, although we'd love to see him on the lead lap at some point soon, because he definitely doesn't want to be all the way down there. He doesn't deserve to be so, to be fair. But meanwhile, for Matthew Jordan, the privateer, he finds himself in amongst what is the medley of himself, Samuel Clark, Jack Wyborn and Adam Baker's not too far behind. Goodness me, there are battles ongoing everywhere you go. Right now, all these drivers definitely trying to find an ending to this race that's going to make them happy. And I think for Matthew Jordan, this 11th place in the Pro Class is going to be the best he can get, with Miles Johnson just being that little bit further access in Sport Y in the number 49 and going through the corners right now and up towards what will be turns 8, 9 and 10. Well, that Aston Martin looking quick and looking just about safe enough. Change of position here in elite class for 10th overall. That's Ime Hassalar going up the inside of Danny Phillips. Now will Phillips come back to him here? It's a run down towards turn number 1. Phillips and Dexterous Motorsports McLaren. Doesn't look like he's got the speed to counter this. However, he's going to look up the inside. He's going to make the Dutchman think something's coming. But from that far away, if he was to send it, he would need multiple first class stamps and also recorded delivery at that point. It doesn't quite work out, but Hassalar just slightly goes deep at 2 on entry. But he keeps it together now, coming down for return number 3. And the number 121 driver continues to make progress here. He's up from 16th in elite to 10th. And indeed, some big points coming his way now as he rolls his way with the rise in that Ferrari. And Hassalar's put on an absolute monster performance. He's really had to try and keep it all together over the distance, but it's finally getting there as the 121 driver sees his way all the way now up the hill. Now from there, looking back to Liam Fraser, well, the Moonshiners Racing Club driver still has Roy for close company. In fact, looking back from the rear of Fraser's car, and what you can see there is Kyle Roy looking close, looking threatening. Again, on the straights, that Corvette just hasn't got anything to match the Mercedes. It's all in the braking zones in the corners. We said it once, we said it twice, we'll say it time and time again. It's that constant sway back and forth, but that's what balanced the performance and 2 different car philosophies in their designs will achieve. As meanwhile, off camera, black flag for what is none other than Nicholas Carlson. That will be for instant points. That's a drive-through penalty for Carlson. That has to be served when 3 laps are being awarded, otherwise it will be turned at this point into a post-race time penalty, which I suspect will be northwards of 40 seconds or so. It's better to take the drive-through penalty if he can, because the post-race time penalty is always longer to make sure that drivers don't gain an advantage by taking it after the race. Jack Wyborn fighting in with Samuel Clark meanwhile, but it's an elite driver on the back of a pro driver as they fight for 22nd place here. But everywhere you look, there is fighting going on. All albeit one bit of fighting that is definitely about having as Wyborn looks around the outside there. Does he get it on Clark? Not quite. Clark refuses to budge, and right now it's the little Ferrari versus the high stacked Ford, and in the end Ferrari can't find a way round. But what I was about to say is looking to Mikey Story. He's caught up to Jared Love, and these two have fallen away a little bit from Kyle Roy, who you can see there off in the distance. Roy still chasing down Fraser, but Story definitely now thinking about a chance on Love with 2 minutes left on the clock, and Tim Modig might just spoil the party here. The 9th place elite driver wants to come on through and move a bit further up that finishing order overall. Will Modig play ball, or will he decide to get involved? I think it's going to be the latter as he looks to the inside once. Story defends slightly off centre there and says to Modig, please leave me alone. But as we leave them for a brief moment, here's your leader overall of elite, Sard Ploeg, and then here are your 2nd and 3rd place runners of Kenyon and Humphrey. Tomlinson Dennis, I think since the change of the positions in the pit, as you can see him there in the rear of the picture, I think the wind has slightly been knocked out of his sails and he's settled for 4th place in this race. But a minute and a half left, 2 more laps left in this one. Well, right now Kenyon's just trying to hold on for a little bit longer. Humphrey is 4 attempts back, and in most situations we would say that's safe into a braking zone, but what we've seen today is it's far from safe, and William Humphrey definitely is going out there as well, the stars of the show today, and he's definitely already put together a highlight reel of his own for what could be the candidates of overtake for the season. And as Kenyon makes sure that Humphrey can't get close enough to potentially think about things into turn number 3. What we can see is that regardless of where they're on circuit, that Aston Martin is matching that McLaren now. And indeed, Lewis Kenyon, he's played it very close to his chest all the way through the race. But what other aces does he have up his sleeve at this point, if any? They'll do 46 laps, so this is the penultimate lap. And Humphrey right now will be doing his last little bit of data gathering on where Kenyon's strong, where he's weak. Kenyon will be doing the same here, but of course he's the lead car. He's got to be more cognizant of what he's doing on the road and leading them on around, whereas Humphrey just needs to manage that dirty air off the back end of the McLaren. It's been a brilliant back and forth between these drivers, no doubt about it, but we want to know who's going to be the winner of that battle, and well, we've still got a lap to find out. Through the next corner they come, and behind them there's Tomlinson Dennis. The World of Racing STR Esports driver right now finds a bit of traffic in front of him in the form of the Ford Mustang of Chris Jennings. But I think at this point, Tomlinson Dennis, as much as he'd like Jennings to step aside, I don't think he's going to be feverish at the mouth to say, please move aside. I think it's going to be more of a case of when you're ready, just because he knows right now that the battle for 2nd and 3rd is quite some way out the road, and he's very comfortable in 4th. He doesn't have to worry about Benedictus and Sinkavicius, who is 15 seconds behind him. But the clock strikes 0, and that means we're on to our final lap, ladies and gentlemen. And as we look a little bit further down the top 10, Rhys Saunders right now in 6th for PREMIER Esports. He's still leading that pro class by a very comfortable advantage, and that gap has been all the way out to the best part of 30 seconds now. He has got complete control of this and is constantly on the back of the Vulcan Motorsports machine of Sinkavicius, and is trying to go for that 5th place overall. Further down the order, Story and Love, they're definitely close together at the moment. And, well, the Dexterous Motorsports Kumar driver, I think this is going to be his last chance if he's going to go for it into a heavy braking zone. Out of the pits, meanwhile, that is going to be the number 96 of Nathan Anstis as well. But like down, and Story comes in way too hot, and that is going to be Jared Love straight to the barrier. And, well, that's unexpected. And right now, I think Mikey Story will know that's not going to go down too well. But meanwhile, what is going to go down very well is that Vulcan Motorsports Sard Ploeg, he was pole position in qualifying. He lost the lead early on, he kept us all guessing, but it was a good reason because he's made his way to victory on strategy, and it's a 1-2 for Vulcan Motorsports in the elite and overall, with Lewis Kenyon 2nd ahead of William Humphrey, and then it will be Milton Tomlinson Dennis in 4th place as we now wait 14 seconds behind the World of Racing driver for Benedictus Sinkavicius, who will in the end bring on home 5th place there. It's 1-2-5 there for Vulcan Motorsports, a huge haul of points to start off their season, and behind him in 6th place overall, it is the maiden pro win of the season for Rhys Saunders for PREMIER Esports, untouchable today, ahead of Ryan Nickerson, Thomas Pugh, and then Jesper Svensson. Speaking of Svensson, here he is, and what a recovery drive from Svensson to make his way all the way back up to 8th in the length and 9th overall. He's happy with that. In the fight for 10th, Liam Fraser will take it, 2nd in pro for Moonshiners Racing Club, just ahead of Kyle Roy, who was best of the rest for Mirror Group M Academy overall, but 3rd in the pro class. And then Tim Modig backed off at the end and finished 12th ahead of Jamie Bardwell, 4th of your pro drivers there, 13th. Mikey Story, meanwhile, into the pit lane with a black flag. That will demote him, but he'll be listed as 14th for the time being. Then it will be Fotis Katios, 6th on the road for the pro class, 15th overall, ahead of Ime Hasalar, who in the end runs out of fuel at the finish line. but does get the car home in 16th place, head of Villa Katonen. And then we will see Jared Love in a very frustrating end to his race, but he comes into the pits with a black flag as well due to that contact. And well, for Love and Story, there's going to be some words after the race, I suspect, but they'll likely keep it civil. And Jared Love will be your last classified lead lap finisher, ladies and gentlemen, with Danny Phillips and Chris Jennings completing your top 20 overall. There's Phillips with Dexterous Motorsports Car, on 11th place in the elite class, and Jennings in the end took home that 20th or 9th in Pro. Well, as all our drivers cooling down, and Sard Ploeg here leads what is the elite lead pack into the pit lane, being waved to there by several other drivers. They make the way past him. He'll be absolutely chuffed with this one, and Lewis Kenyon follows him on around there, knowing it's a 1-2 for the team, and they worked it out perfectly on strategy, no matter what William Humphrey and Tomlinson Dennis could throw at them. But today, it's the flags of Vulcan Motorsports that fly high, and Kenyon is going to push his teammate all the way to the pit lane. But we'll leave them be, and let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are, starting with your overall results. And as we can see, after a thrilling season opener here for Split A's round 1 of the Thursday GT3 Championship Season 11 at SimRacing International, the Sachsenring circuit saw Sard Ploeg take victory for Vulcan Motorsports ahead of his teammate of Lewis Kenyon. William Humphrey for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing, my goodness did he show that he's got tenacity and he has got brakes of steel, but the 198 driver really in the end, for everything he threw at it, could only achieve third. However, that's not to be down about. Third overall and third in the elite class, he set a huge marker for many to beat. One of which, Milton Tomlinson Dennis. Fourth in the end for World of Racing STR Motorsports. Well, he'll be wondering where exactly it went wrong to miss the podium, but also be pleased with the fact he stayed with the leaders all the way to the end. Benedictus Sinkevicius was really the best of the rest then, in 5th place for Vulcan Motorsports in the Lamborghini Huracan. Made up 1 place from the start of the race, but stayed exactly where he started in the elite class ahead of Rhys Saunders, your pro winner for Altitude 3M Esports, who absolutely dominated the competition today, and the number 92 driver in that Ford Mustang looked unstoppable. Ryan Nicholson finished 7th for Split Track Esports with a lot of heroics in the early stage of the race, coming all the way through to 10th to 7th, but in the end it was a quiet race for him after about 15 minutes, and Thomas Pugh the same as well, finishing where he started in 8th for Axis Sim Sports X. Jesper Svensson, the Heracles performance driver, made his way on a great recovery drive to 9th, head of Liam Fraser, your run-up in the Pro class for Moonshiners Racing Club, who completed your top 10, and it was Kyle Roy in 11th place there for Miracle Group M Academy, who couldn't quite find 2nd in Pro, but did manage to find 3rd in the class and 11th overall. Tim Modig was behind in Sim Coaches Porsche, ahead of Jamie Bardwell, with Fortis Katios and Ime Hassalar completing your top 15. Behind the Heracles performance driver, it was Villa Katonen for Beowulf Racing Team, who had a good showing, and in the end gained the best part of 15 places overall to finish in 16th, ahead of Mikey Story, with Jared Love in 18th place, and that's where they were demoted to with their post-race time penalties in the end, and well, because they were demoted to the back end of the lap they finished on. So they were the last lead lap finishers, with Danny Phillips and Chris Jennings both a lap down, 19th and 20th. We won't drill too much longer on the overall finishing positions because it's the class places which count the most, but we can see there is 21st all the way through to 30th, the run of Matthew Jordan, Samuel Clark, Jack Wyborn, Adam Baker, Mark Johnson, Alex Fretwell, Max Wheeler, Mark Hutchison, David Hutchison and Menno Blom, and a special shout out there in particular to what was the battle between Jack Wyborn, Adam Baker and also Marl Johnson, who enjoyed a good fight midway through the race. Outside at top 30, it was also a lap down to the likes of Nicholas Carlson and also Wesley Van Rens, with Van Rens having a bit of a frustrating qualifying session, added up to a frustrating race for 9 Pegasus Pantera. And then we did see none other than what was Mark De Vries ahead of Peter Duke, with Nathan Anstis in the end having to make an emergency pit stop for extra fuel on the final lap, with Danny Silliers, Ross Young, Mike Barber, Frank Buesine and Lorenzo Gorgieto, the Virtual Racing Team driver, completing your top 40. The latter two of Buzin and Gorgieto were 2 laps down, and it was also 2 laps down and to a few other drivers. In fact, there's more laps down than that, when we did have our retirees of Burt Macklin, Robin Noel Brown, Ashley Coupland, Stuart Cardozo, Hayden Miller, Ashley Brooks, Connor Spree, Nick Stubb, Danny Van then Stephen Donnelly, and last but not least, Matthew Bacon, who retired after only 1 corner turned. But now let's come to your individual finishing positions, ladies and gentlemen. And here we go, back to the very top of the elite class. And as we can see, Sard Ploeg then your winner today for Vulcan Motorsports by 1.6 seconds over his teammate Lewis Kenyon. A 1-2, and in the words there of Matt Watkins, none other than 3 in the top 5. You love to see it, and they will love to see this. William Humphrey was 3rd for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing, but keep your eyes out for him. I think a win is definitely on the cards very soon, and Milton Tomlinson Dennis the same in 4th. Benedict Victor's Sinkevicius round off that top 5, and then it was Ryan Nickerson in 6th, with Thomas Pugh, Jesper Svensson, Tim Modig and Ime Hassalar completing the elite top 10, and Modig and Hassalar both picking up some good points. Then Danny Phillips in 11th, and a bit of a quiet race today for the Dexterous Motorsports Quamar driver, classified a lap down, but ahead of MRC 495's Jack Wyborn, with Max Wheeler, Mark Hutchison and Mike Barber completing the points garras there, all the way through to the end of the top 15. The Quatermass Motorsport driver in the end ahead of the retirees of Ashley Coupland, Hayden Miller, Connor Spree and Danny Van Oom. Then coming to the Pro class. And here, as we can see in Pro, Rhys Saunders, your winner for Altitude 3M Esports. And what a win. 22 seconds it was at the end, ahead of Liam Fraser for Moonshiners Racing Club, who could only hold off Kyle Roy to 8 tenths at the end, where it was 8 thousandths or 8 tenths. That's enough to make sure he finished second ahead of Miracle Group M Academy's very quick Corvette driver. Behind Roy, it was then Jamie Bardwell ahead of Fortis Katios, with the two drivers never getting close to each other over the distance, but the Split Straight Esports driver in turn made sure that Villa Katonen could not get close enough to him, with a Finn from Beowulf Racing Team being followed up by Mikey Story and Jared Love, but both drivers they're sacrificing places as a result of their last lap contact into turn 1 and both picking up black flags. Behind the DC Motorsport driver, it was a lap down to Chris Jennings, as it was to Matthew Jordan, who completed the top 10, the Pro 2 then being followed up by Samuel Clark, who makes his debut in the Pro class as of this season and looked to be enjoying himself at Dexterous Motorsports MX, ahead of Adam Baker, with Mark Johnson, then Alex Fretwell and David Hutchison round off your top 15, but more points were scored all the way down to top 30, of course, with Menno Blom, Nicholas Carlson, Vesey Van Rens, Mark De Vries and Peter Duke completing the top 20. It was a day of learning for Peter Duke in the DC Motorsport Corvette, and it was also a day of learning for Nathan Anstis in the UK Sim Racing Norris Porsche, with Danny Sidiers just behind him for Sim Coach, but ahead of Ross Young for Dexterous Motorsports MX. It was 2 laps down to both DNR Esports' Frank Busen and also Lorenzo Guilletto for Virtual Racing Team. And then we did have the retirements, unfortunately, of Burt Macklin, Robin Noel Brown, Schubert Cardozo, Ashley Brooks, Nick Stubb, and of course, none other than Stephen Donnelly and Matthew Bacon. So that concludes your rundown of the provisional results, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, the Sachsenring falls silent. But it doesn't fall silent on the broadcast for too long, because coming up shortly will be our post-round interviews, our first of the season. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss them. We will see you again very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews. And we are going to be kicking off with our driver today, who absolutely delivered a special win. It is none other than Serd Pleweg, who joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Serd, and what a day for yourself. Pole position and a win in the elite class and overall. I mean, how do you feel?
Amazing. Being back to this championship again, amazing. I did not, when I got into P4, I did not expect to win it anymore. But then I boxed like 2 or 3 laps earlier than me. I was like, maybe I can still win this. So it was so exciting.
Well, you absolutely surprised everybody with a miraculous piece of fuel saving and a brilliant bit of strategy. But before we get to that, we do need to talk about the fact that coming into this season, you are theoretically the elite favourite, given you are our 3rd place finisher last season and our top 2 are not on the grid. Have you had that in mind in preparation for season 11, or do you not care about the favourite title?
I mean, yeah, it is of course a title to defend, but I knew my 2 teammates, Benedictus and Hayden, were gonna try hard a lot. So I was like, I need to step up my game as well now. So I was trying a lot for this race actually.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, you've stepped up immediately, and with regards to that, qualifying, we saw you put it on pole by the best part of what was 2.5 attempts. Did you impress yourself with your qualifying lap, or was that exactly where you expected to be?
Oh, totally. I was like, oh god, this lap is very fast. Then a few laps later, when I refueled again, I was like, I cannot get close to this anymore. I'll just stop driving because I cannot get close anymore.
Well, fair play. Well, it only took one to put you on pole, and you got it done in a brilliant fashion. And then going into the race, of course, rolling start at the Sachsenring, it's a long run down towards turn number 1. It's a long braking zone as well. But an Aston Martin decided to have some very long brakes. Did that catch you by surprise? So you looked as though you were going through what was a bit of a squeeze into turn 1.
Yeah, totally. I was like, okay, I'm gonna take it easy first race of the season, brake calmly, and then I just see William flying by. I was like, what is going on? But yeah, it totally surprised me.
Oh, goodness me. Well, it was a surprise for you. And we did see in the opening stages oscillate back and forth. Also, a small off-track as well put you to the back of the top 4. But you didn't give up. Was there perhaps a change of strategy at that point? Did you think, okay, I need to save fuel now instead?
I was always saving fuel. Every lap I was just saving so much fuel, also saving tires. That's why I just wasn't pulling away. I was trying to keep the guys behind me in my dirty air so they would burn their tires. And I was just fuel saving so much, and then because I was fuel saving, they could easily overtake me. Then I got into P4 and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna just continue fuel saving, keeping a long distance to keep my tires alive. But still, I managed to get P1, so I'm so happy.
And just on that, I mean, all the fuel saving added up so well, and also the tyre management, a critical factor, particularly when you are driving none other than the Acura NSX. But with that in mind, when you came into the pits, as late as you did, you said it was a surprise firstly, but did you expect then to have a 3-second gap when you came out the pits? And in fact, also to come out in a bit of a side-by-side moment with a Ford Mustang that was a lap down, which, I mean, for someone who's about to win a race, Sard, I've got to say, that was risky.
Yeah, it was like I got into the pits. I actually thought I got a drive-through because I sped into the pit line. I was like, shit. And then I was just waiting for the black flag to show up, but it never did. I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna just drive. Got out of the pits. I see just Mustang just flying up to my inside. I was like, oh god. And then I was like, okay, just push, head down, focus. I'm P1. I gotta go. So man, so happy.
Oh, well, a brilliant result and a happy end today. Not just for yourself as well, a 1-2 for the Vulcan Motorsports team and also a 5th place for Benedictus Sinkevicius as well. It's a great start for you in the Drivers' Championship. It's a great start in the Teams' Championship. I mean, I can imagine right now in the garage, you must all be absolutely jumping up and down in joy.
Yeah, totally. It was such an amazing race. It's good to see my teammates doing well as well. Unfortunate for Hayden, I don't know what exactly happened to him, but yeah, I think he had to stop halfway through the race. But amazing job by my other teammates.
Well, an amazing job today by yourself and the team. Now, going on to our next round, of course, in a week's time, we make our way to none other than what is the Daytona International Speedway. What can we expect from you there?
I do not really like the slipstream battles of Daytona, so I will see how I will do there. I think the Acura last season was very good at Daytona, so we'll see how the Acura fares this season. So we'll see.
Oh, well, we look forward to seeing what you can deliver at Daytona, even if it's not to your fancy. But just before we do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on air?
Well, I will do it to my parents this time because when I finished the race, they came just storming into the room and like, congratulations. So yeah, I would also like to thank you for the streams as well because it's always always fun to watch the streams back. So yeah, thank you.
Well, we need to say a big thank you for a brilliant performance and also a phenomenal win at the very end of it. Serd, it's been a pleasure having a chat to you this evening. Thank you for joining me in the interview room. We'll see you at Daytona in a week's time and see whether you can make it 2 from 2.
Yeah, see ya.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, for a very happy Serd Ploeg for Vulcan Motorsports, and what a way to open up the season. Puts it on pole with a lap that surprised him and felt as though it was a good lap at that. And then going into the race, caught by surprise by William Humphrey's Aston Martin having the best brakes of everybody into turn number 1. But in the end, managed to make sure that he saved the fuel and saved the tyres all the way through, and was surprised when everybody else ducked into the pits a couple of laps earlier than he did. And as a result, he was able to make the miraculous turnover happen, and in the end was able to bring home the class and overall win. A great way to start off the season, no doubt, but he'll know now the pressure is on even more, and going to Daytona next time out with it being a very slipstream focused race, it's not quite his cup of tea. So therefore, for the Vulcan Motorsports driver, will it be one that he has to overcome adversity to make it another victory? Well, we will see then. But we've got more interviews to come, ladies and gentlemen. And next up, well, we're heading to the Pro class. But to whom exactly? You're about to find out. And so joining me now in the interview room is none other than our pro winner from today. It is Altitude 3M Esports' Reese Saunders. Good evening to you, Reese. And what a day from yourself. I mean, you look so in control in qualifying and also in the race. And also, you seem to be the bane of a few elite drivers along the way. But how was it for you out there?
Lots of pressure. It's such a tricky track, and it's very, very punishing as well. So if you, especially in that middle sector, it's so high speed, and you've got to commit to the corner very early on. So I was just, I was holding on for dear life for a large part of the race. It didn't feel like I was in control. I'm prone to self-spinning. Most sport in the GTEs was coming back to my mind from last season. And I was thinking, if I self-spin out of the lead here, I'd never be able to show my face again. So no, it was good. It was good. The quali gaps were really tight. As much as being P5 versus P9, I think was Menno next car in class. It was only about a 1/10 and a half. So as much as the gap looked quite big in terms of standings, the time difference, it was a really competitive qualifying. And being the open format as well, it's just trying to get the right track condition, a qualifying cloud, and nobody in front of you.
Well, I really appreciate the thoughts there on qualifying. That brings us on to a bit of a similar topic. Of course, this circuit being one or two halves, so you get to see all sides of a car. You've gone from what has typically been perhaps your more enjoyed BMW M4 over previous seasons and series now to the Ford Mustang. How have you found the transition?
Really decent, pretty decent. I ran the Mustang a couple of seasons ago in WGTC. And the Mustang has been the so-called meta for probably a season now on the official side. I was like, you know what, if you can't beat them, join them. Although it is actually a really diverse grid. I think as I'm looking at the top 5 now on my screen, the top 6 cars are all different manufacturers. So the diversity is great in the league. But yeah, Fords have been, they've been the meta as such. It was time for a change. I love that BMW. It was a heart-wrenching decision to park it for the season. Decided to go with the Ford.
Well, absolutely fair play to you. And by going to the Ford, you put it on pole firstly, albeit by minor margins, but you got it there so. And then going into the race itself. Now, a very short circuit around here, 50 cars or so. It always means that at some point you're going to find traffic, and at some point as well, you're going to end up just caught between cars. But from your side, you started with a few elites behind you before the next pro driver. Did that perhaps change your outlook on the race compared to if you'd started with pro company right behind you?
Absolutely. It was all about just not taking too many risks. I think I started P5 behind Will Humphries on that right-hand lane, and I got a small run on him into turn one, or I'd got the momentum on the way down to turn one, and I thought about making a move. I thought about sending it. I thought, it's not my fight. The cars behind me aren't my fight either. I thought I can just chill out on the inside. And then he went and sent it 3 wide up the inside into turn one anyway, so I was quite glad I didn't go for it, because I'm not sure there'd have been space for 4 of us.
All fair play. Well, I don't think there would have been space for 4, like you say, but still, you stayed out of trouble and the race gradually went on. And whilst you didn't have any challenge from a pro driver necessarily today, we did see you from about the halfway point of the race onwards, constantly running over the back of the Lamborghini of Sinkevicius. I do have to wonder, were there some moments there where you were tempted to try and put one over the Lamborghini driver? Because we kept seeing you poke your nose in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If the opportunity came to attack him and go for the move, I would have done. He positioned his car really well. I got slightly better traction out the final corner a couple of times, but the one lap he sent me to the outside, and you just can't make it around the outside of turn one. And then on the second go, I managed to try and surprise him because there was a lap car in the way. I got the inside, but I couldn't quite get far enough ahead for a long left-hander. So no, absolutely, I would have gone past him. I was actually running ahead of him early stages in the race, and I made a small mistake on the second to last corner, and that shoved me behind Benedictus first, and then I think Ryan sent a move on me, and it put me behind him. I actually dropped P2 in class for about a lap or so, but then Fotis made a mistake, so it made it back to front. So it wasn't all plain sailing, it wasn't all my own way. But yeah, now mixing it up with the elites was good fun, but yeah, no undue risks, because at the end of the day, they're not my race, I'm not their race. It was just about getting some clean air, getting some space for myself, saving a bit of fuel, and bringing the car home ahead of the other pros.
Well, absolute fair approach in the end, and by doing so, you kept it safe, kept out of trouble, and had a victory added to your name already. I mean, now we're looking ahead to perhaps our next round. It's Daytona for round number 2. A circuit that's packed full of oval banking, full of acceleration zones and top speed and slipstream. Surely it's the perfect recipe for you and the Mustang.
Potentially so. I've decided not to run the Daytona 24 this year, mainly because I crashed out of every special event I ran last year. So I thought, you know what, actually, I'm not going to jeopardise a team's result this year. So what I've done, I'm sitting out of it. And I actually struggle at Daytona slightly. I think because everybody has run so many laps with the big endurance race being there, is that people's pace tends to be really, really strong. So I'm actually not looking forward to next week. I'm not that confident about it. Obviously, I'll run the practice and go from there. But yeah, I don't expect it to be a repeat of this week, that's for sure.
Oh, fair play. Well, we look forward to seeing you out there giving it your all at Daytona in a week's time. But just as we get ready to let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast tonight?
Of course, I'd love to shout out to the Team Altitude 3M Esports, but also as well a special shout out to James Bostock, because he said to me just ahead of the season, he went, you can be quite quick on your day, providing you put the effort in and you can be bothered. So I was between jobs over the last week, so I did loads of practice. So it probably proves him right that I can be quite quick on my day if, in fact, I can be bothered. Those words did sting. So thank you, James, for the motivation.
Well, he definitely gave you the motivation, and you've proven you can be quick reads. It's been a pleasure to see you take victory in the Pro Class today. Well done on your performance. Thank you for joining me in the interview room. And with that, we bid you a great evening to see you at Daytona in a week's time. So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Rhys Saunders, and well, very happy with his performance, no doubt about it, and giving that shout out there to James Bostock, who gave him a little bit of motivation, let's say. But for the Altitude 3M Esports driver today, talking about firstly his move from the BMW to the Mustang, and how it was a little bit of a heart-wrencher just because he enjoys the BMW so much, but he's decided to go with the quote-unquote the meta car, or the most effective tactic available car, and well, it seems to have proven dividends, although the car diversity, which he talked about there, definitely shone through. With the fact that inside the top 10 we have had an Acura, a Mercedes, an Aston Martin, a McLaren, a Lamborghini, and also another McLaren, a Corvette, a Ford Mustang, and an Aston Martin and a McLaren, all in what has been the opening 10 cars just on this replay footage alone. And well, you do the maths there, that's the best part of, I do believe, 6 different manufacturers. So diversity is key. The Ford Mustang's not just having it all its own way, but Saunders definitely had it all his own way today after Katios slipped back behind him. And as a result, then he just prided himself on making sure to stay out without a trouble, a smooth run to victory. But at Daytona, he doesn't fancy his chances much, perhaps. And could that be an inroad for some other drivers to perhaps try and steal his fame and thunder? Well, we'll see next time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our third interviewee. We'll be back very shortly to see who it is. And so now, ladies and gentlemen, joining me in the interview room is none other than a fellow pro driver. It is your runner-up in pro today. It's Liam Fraser. Good evening to you, Liam. And well, what a race from yourself. Not quite able to stay with the man we just interviewed necessarily, but you're definitely the best of the rest, even if Kyle Roy kept you honest at the end.
Oh, Kyle Roy kept me honest all the way through. I don't think he dropped further than a second and a half for the last 3/4 of the race, to be honest. Kept me very, very honest.
Well, he may have kept you honest throughout the entirety of the race, but just before we talk more about that, let's just talk a little bit about qualifying. 15th overall, 5th in class. Were you happy with that? Something tells me you had more pace to show us.
I was quite surprised, actually. I've not spent a lot of time this week running this tracking car. I don't think I had much more. I did have a torrid time trying to put a lap together. It did take me 2/3 of the session to actually put something half decent together. A lot of traffic. Just in general, the track just does not lend itself to that style of qualifying, really. We've got a big grid tonight. Everybody's trying to put on the best show. They got the best suits on, trying to make the best of it, and everyone was having the same problem. To be honest with you, that's the best lap I've put in all week. That's probably the best. Yeah. So, and it was a point where I thought there's not really much point going back out at the very end, because I don't think I could beat it.
Well, fair play. Well, an impressive lap in qualifying then, and going into the race. As the race got underway, we did see a little bit of a coming together for drivers in amongst, around you, and a bit behind. Where did you find yourself in those opening couple of corners?
So the opening couple of corners, I found myself in the big stack on the inside of turn one. I knew I wanted to be on the inside, but it was very much a stack. I thought we was going to come to a stop at one point, but there is some real quality towards the front of the grid, and I think being towards the front of that grid really helps. To be honest, but I found myself in the stack. I saw Fotis just absolutely sling it down the middle of everybody, and I just thought, that's okay, he can go. He is genuinely quicker than me anyway. I knew I was 5th in class, but I was aiming for a top 10. When I looked at the sign-up sheet, my name's towards the bottom of the iRating of most people. But to be fair, I don't do a great deal, if any, officials, to be honest. So it is a little under, but it's definitely not elite. But it's the first few corners, just wanted to make it through. I knew the track is it's a rhythm track. You've got to keep the rhythm. You've got to make sure you're not the one catching the outside gravel, being sucked off, and just losing a couple of places and getting your feathers ruffled that way. It's all about not making mistakes and keeping the rhythm together. And tonight, I don't think I went more than half a car wider than I wanted to. So pretty much put it everywhere I wanted it tonight.
That's fantastic. A really solid performance then, and well, one where you've been able to show your consistency. And coming back to the battle between yourself and Kyle over the distance, his Corvette had a lot of speed in the corners and also some on the shorter straight. Your Mercedes, meanwhile, just able to romp away, particularly towards the back end of the lap. Did it feel as though it was a bit of a seesaw and roundabout, whereby so long as you were leading into the opening couple of corners, he couldn't quite pass you, no matter how much he threatened you?
Yep. So I knew he was picking up on me, and I knew I was picking up on him. That it was the first couple of corners in the Omega. He's nudged me a couple of times by accident, but there's nothing you can do down there. Coming over the top 4, 5, and 6, I felt really weak there, so I was really taking my time. But I took a click of wing off before qualifying, and it really helped me all the way over 8, 9, 10 and 11. So I did seem to gap him in there, and then I wasn't being brave enough into 12, and then the last few laps, I realised I wasn't being brave enough into 12. I started being a bit more brave. Last few laps, I think I broke his spirit, and he accepted third. But I really needed to keep my concentration absolutely maximum. Did fall asleep a couple of times in qualifying and once in the race, but it really kept my concentration up, which I'm quite proud of myself for.
Well, you should be, because those concentration levels definitely proved valuable all the way to the end, and a second place in the Pro Class and a 10th overall. You've achieved your aim in the opening race. A brilliant way to start off your season. So as we head to Daytona next week, what's your target there?
10th in class still. I was qualifying about 13th in class last season, so I was always look to go forward from where I start. So still 10th in class. Try and keep it, just stay on, stay consistent as best I can.
Well, fair play. We look forward to seeing whether you can achieve that and continue to move yourself forward, like you say. But as we get ready to let you go, Liam, is there anyone you'd like to say a thank you or give a shout out to tonight on the show?
Yeah, all the Moonshiner boys, Dean, Rob and Jimmy, Tony from work, obviously, and everybody who's putting the pets in. SRI Pets, that's the best channel on the whole entire Discord. Keep the pets coming. We love to see dogs doing stuff. I suppose cats as well, mostly dogs, but yeah. And thank you to you for the good stream.
Well, it's my pleasure, Liam, and I'm with you on that. The SRI Pets channel is the best place to go. But enough talking about cats and dogs at the moment. Thank you very much for joining me in the interview room. Well done on your podium today, and a brilliant top 10 overall as well. We'll see you at Daytona to see if you can double up on it. But until then, my friend, have a lovely rest of your evening.
Same to you. Thank you very much.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from Liam Fraser, and you can hear it in his voice. He's exhausted, but he's very happy with what he's been able to achieve, and it really does rub off on you. It actually makes me feel a little bit emotional hearing him like that, because the fact that he's come into this one targeting what is a top 10 overall potentially, but at least will be a top 10 in the Pro Class, only then to push beyond his boundaries and go from 5th in class to 2nd, and on that inside line into the opening couple of corners, being safe in the stack as he referred to it, where it's all paid off. And that is why Liam Fraser, as time has gone on, has gone from a driver in Split B to Split A. He's a mainstay of Split A now, and well, if he can repeat it at Daytona, he may just be one of the mainstay candidates for the championship in the Pro Class this season. But we'll have to wait and see what he can do next round and whether he can make that a reality. But with that, we've got one more interview to come this evening, ladies and gentlemen. And, well, we're staying in the Pro Class. We're making our way a little bit further backwards. We'll be right back. And for our final interview this evening, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be with none other than the man who joins me now. It is Jared Love. Good evening to you, Jared. And, well, I think understandably this must feel an evening of a lot of positives and then one slight negative, a big one, however, right at the end of the day.
Hi, Paul. How you doing? Yes, certainly a big negative at the end. I was quite... I don't know, I just seemed to be quite stressed all race. I think it was just one of these unlucky races that every time I came up behind somebody for lapping them, they just didn't seem to want to get out of my way. I understand that some of them had obviously had instants and they're in a different class and might well be faster, but they were getting in between me and a car I was trying to race, and just frustrating. I think I was quick around the whole lap, but the sections I was quick at weren't places that were going to help you overtake, so to speak. So I was quite quick through 3, 4, 5 up and over the little hump there in 6. I had a different line that I was trying to take than every other car, and every track guide I've kind of looked at, I was taking a different line and kind of seemed to work for me. But then I was slower through 7, 8, 9, where obviously a lot of people were doing overtakes, and ultimately that's where I got overtook by Kyle Roy.
Well, fair play. And whilst there were some frustrations, like you say, talking a bit more about the positives. Firstly, transitioning from, I believe it was the Mercedes last season, to the Ferrari. You look very comfortable in the Ferrari. Why pick it?
Yeah, I've kind of I'm still fairly new to sim racing, but predominantly for the last year I've been using front engine, so the Mercedes and the Mustang, and I know the Mustang more so than the Mercedes is kind of generally always the quicker car or up there the quicker car, but just fancied a change, see if it would bring out some weaknesses in my driving and see if I can improve it. I hated the Ferrari pre new tyre model. I just used to lose the rear. Again, that could have been an inexperience because I was still very, very new. But with the new tyre model, I was going to run it for the Spa 24 in July, but I think it was heavily, heavily nerfed, so I didn't. But I liked it on the new tyre model then, and I thought between that and the McLaren and the Corvette that the rest of the DC boys are running, I thought I'll just go the Ferrari. I already have it. I have the McLaren, but I prefer the Ferrari, and I don't have. Well, I have the money, but I don't want to spend any more money on another car if I've got other ones I could drive. So, no Corvette.
Well, fair play. Well, appreciate the insight, and I think you've gone with the right choice, to be honest. And it was demonstrated in qualifying, 4th place in Pro, 14th overall in a very tight field here at a short circuit. Were you pleased with the lap?
Yeah, somewhat. The first, up until the last couple of corners, I think the lap was really good, and then I was gaining time pretty much every lap from there. Certainly the last corner I kind of didn't do greatly on my qualifying sort of fastest lap. So there was time to be had, but you know, you're never going to set a perfect lap. So ultimately, yeah, 4th place in class, 14th overall was better than what I was expecting. Again, I'm happy with sort of top 10 in class is generally my minimum goal I'm looking for, and that will allow me across the season, if I'm consistent, to be there thereabouts, nearby to the top.
I see. And then going into the race, a good starting position, and you found yourself in plenty of pro company over the distance. Some names, for example, being the likes of Kyle Roy and also Mikey Story, who we'll come on to specifically a little bit later. But did you feel as though in the race scenario you were able to get a lot out of the Ferrari, barring the troubles you had with drivers on different laps? Yeah,
I think I had the pace there. I don't know if it's just me, I'm not good in dirty, you know, if I'm behind somebody. Just I prefer to drive in cleaner air. I don't know if that's me, and I need to practice more racing rather than just hot lapping, so to speak. So when I was in clean air, I was able to keep up with people or get a gap. And obviously the first 10 laps or so, I built a wee gap to Liam. Got caught behind one of the elite drivers who, you know, it was a fight for position. I get we're in a different class. I'm not expecting them to get out of my way by any stretch of the imagination, as much as I'm sure we'd all love it if folk just got out of our way. But he was sort of defending me for my life, and it let them catch back up to me. And from there, the areas that I was faster in the track weren't helping me, and Liam got past me with a wee mistake, and I think Kyle got up inside into one of the areas that maybe a weaker point of the track, and he made a really good overtake on me going into 7 or 8, I believe it was.
Well, I see. And with that, and a good rivalry starting to build between yourself and Kyle Roy in 2 similar cars, him in the Corvette and you in the Ferrari. But then another rivalry, of course. It was looking quite comfortable for you for a 4th place in class at the end, and, well, a bit of a rub between yourself and Mikey Story. That's an understatement, but into turn 1, you found yourself in the barrier.
Yeah. I'm not going to say anything about that. I've put something in the chat. He's gave his point. His teammates then piped up, but I'll let it deal with the stewards if they think I've done something wrong there. In my opinion, yeah, I'm just not going to speak. I'll get myself in trouble. I'll say something silly and get upset at the admins. I'll get upset at them. I'm not here to get kicked out of the league or upset anyone, but I've certainly got my own opinion on that, in fact, as you did, I believe, because I watched your commentary back on the matter.
Oh, no, it's absolutely fair, Jared, and I think you're doing the right thing to just let it go to the admins and the stewards. So let's come back on track with something positive. A good start to your season, even if the result doesn't show it at the end, and we're off to Daytona next. What can we expect from you there?
Yeah, I don't like Daytona, I'll be honest with you. I really personally just struggle in cars when you've got the wing just stripped away. I lose the rear a lot. Again, I think it's just my driving style. I'll put in some practice. I've also got the 24-hour, which I'll be hoping to join a team for that. So I'll be getting practice in, and who knows where we'll be. But yeah, not crashing would be an achievement, I think, for me at Daytona.
Well, fair play. It's a good target to have, particularly when you're on so little downforce, like you say. But as we do get ready to let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to on the broadcast?
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to yourself. Commentary's always brilliant. I love going back and watching the races. Shout out to the boys at DC. If that's from just chatting throughout the week and Discord voice chat as well as text chat, comparing telemetry with each other and just try to improve ourselves together as a team. And then shout out to the wife as well. She gives me time during the week when I'm not working to get a wee bit of practice in, and then lets me race, which is a blessing with 2 young kids that I have.
Oh, well, Jared, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Thank you for your time this evening, and well done on your performance. We look forward to seeing whether you can get to grips with the low downforce on the Ferrari at Daytona in a week's time. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Cheers, Paul. You too, mate. See you later.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from our final interview of the day, Jared Love. And understandably they're quite frustrated given how the race ended for him. And as he mentioned, we're not going to talk about the matter in full because that's for the stewards to deal with. But there's 2 different sides to the story. There always is. And that's why we'll never give our full thoughts on any instance here in the commentary booth, because the stewards have all the camera angles. We only have what we have at the time. However, there were also a lot of positives to unpick there, particularly the change of car. We were talking about the fact that he's been getting on quite well with the Ferrari, wanted to perhaps go with the Corvette, but decided not to spend the funds on it and go with the car he already had, which is similar to what the rest of the team have gone for. And he does look happy in this Ferrari. That qualifying lap put himself well inside what was the top 5 of the Pro class, and in the race, staying with the podium runners all the way through to the very end. I think it's definitely a burgeoning relationship between Jared Love and the Ferrari, and his transition from front engine rear wheel drive to mid engine rear wheel drive will gradually grow. The only problem is when we go to Daytona with very little rear wing on the cars, he's got to get used to the fact that rear end is going to be slipping and sliding at every corner, entry and exit. But if he can tame that, he may just yet improve himself even further and be chasing those podiums ever still. But that's the task for Jared Love at Daytona. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes all our interviews, and let's give you a recap of who we've spoken to this evening. So a big thank you to all of our interviewees who were tonight. Firstly, from the elite class, we had the one and only winner of the class today, an overall winner, that was said Ploeg for Vulcan Motorsports, who absolutely led the way in qualifying and used strategy to outsmart everybody in the race. We then heard from the pro class trio, firstly from Altitude 3M Esports, the winner of the class, Reece Saunders, who also took that pole position. We also heard from a very happy Liam Fraser for Moonshiners Racing Club, who also sounded equally exhausted. And then we heard from Jared Love just now for DC Motorsport in the pro class. And then the points didn't come his way today, but the performance definitely did. A big thank you to all 4 of them for their time this evening, and well done to them all on their race results. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for us to wrap up. So thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the SimRacing International community or how you can be on the grid for any one of our ongoing or upcoming series, well, for all that and more, we definitely recommend you join the official Discord of SimRacing International, the Beating Heart, and the link is at the bottom of the screen. And if you do join our current series ongoing, they do include the GT3 Championship Season 11, which you've been tuning into today, that runs on Thursday evenings. We also do have on Sundays, if you're looking for your GT3 thrill on a weekend, we do have the UK SimRacing Community GT3 Championship, which is now in its 17th season and very soon heading into round number 2. In fact, heading into round number 1, I should say. It's just had its pre-season, and we're going to be lifting the curtain on the official season this coming weekend. We also do have on Fridays a trip back in time to 2023, and with it to the GTE machines that GT3s are replaced, and we're heading to round number 2 of that this coming Friday. Be sure to catch that if you want to see the older GT class machines go racing. But if you want something a bit more casual, and that's free to join, you can, of course, join our official practice league, which runs on Tuesday evenings, Wednesday evenings, and Saturday afternoons. There's never been a better time to be on the grid at SimRacing International, because there is something for everybody here, whether you're an esports veteran all the way through to a rookie and novice. But also on top of that, ladies and gentlemen, we need to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include Carmate, Modern Technology, the GP2 Group, and also Motorsport UK, particularly their esports division, and a big thank you to them for continuing to recognise us here at the SimRacing International community as a recommended community, and we do hope that relationship and status can continue throughout 2026. But With that, we now look ahead to next time, and as we do, it's round number 2, and on Thursday, the 15th of January 2026, we make our way all the way to Daytona International Speedway in the US of A, and in the state of Florida, it's going to be about who is smart with the draft and is bold on the brakes. Well, come join us then as the story of Split A will continue, and we'll get to see whether Sard Play can make it 2 from 2 in the elite class, and whether Reece Saunders can complete the same in the pro class. But until then, we have been SimRacing International. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, like our drivers, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.